What a fabulous day it is. What's going on, my friends? Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. We got a big show planned for you today. In fact, our college football and NFL insider, Mr. Alex Brink, former Coug, will join us coming up in 20 minutes. We're going to head to Denver for a Bo Nix update and talk with Brandon Cristal from 850 KOA. We got to ask him why Bo Nix and Sean Payton have never seen rain before in the history of their lives, Godfather.
Yeah.
And then our good friend Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian will join us at 5:20. We'll get his takeaways from the early parts of Trailblazers Camp, Media Day, which was on Monday, and, of course, get his thoughts on Michigan State and Oregon on Friday, and then the following Saturday, Ohio State. So Aaron Fentress will join us. If you want to jump on board, the telephone number is 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Also, you can hit up the Godfather on social media. You'll find him there at Dwight James. You'll find me there at Chad Rip City. Michael Shacker is with us. So today starts the first day of 56 straight days of football that you're going to be able to watch. So it's either college or the NFL. Did you ever think we'd see a day where you'd have 56 straight days of televised football? It's amazing.
No, I couldn't see that day yesterday happening. I did not know anybody was playing on Wednesday. That just floored me when I saw that.
You know, I'm a big believer that sometimes leaving the audience wanting more is a good idea. I don't know if that applies to football because I don't get tired of it, and I know a lot of people who don't get tired of it. It's almost like the one invincible sport there is. If you put it on TV, you're going to draw an audience because people are jonesing for more college football, more NFL, and that's why the owners are looking at a way to add another game to the schedule because they know people are going to consume, and it's a way for them to make more money. It's a massive phenomenon in the country.
Yeah. Well, not only this country, they're taking it worldwide. Everybody all over the world is looking at football.
Whether you
right
and I
now.
want them to do it or not, they're going to do it.
They are. Yeah. We have no power there.
I was scared yesterday when we had Brian Noah in studio.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll try to take the Super Bowl overseas or elsewhere, but they might. I could see the owners trying to do something like that if it meant putting more money in their pockets.
Hey, go to Germany and find out how big of a check they would write to get the Super Bowl over there. If that check is big enough, yep, we're going to back up the truck and take the Super Bowl overseas.
All right, I want to play this for you. You sent this over to me, and this goes back to a discussion you and I have had on multiple occasions about teams, the need for a team to capitalize on the opportunity that is right in front of them.
Yeah.
For instance, there are many players and teams who think, don't worry, we'll get back. We'll have a chance to win the championship next year. And then the problem is they never get back and never get another opportunity to win the championship. Just ask Dan Marino what's that feeling is like. Well, the 49ers are in an interesting spot right now. They have one of the best rosters in football. They nearly won the championship last year but lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Had a chance to win the game.
Close game, yeah.
Very close game. And this is really the last great opportunity for them with the roster being the way it is because they're going to have to pay their quarterback. Some of the guys are aging, and they're going to have to retool the roster a little bit. So this is a great opportunity for San Francisco right now to capitalize on what they failed on last year, especially in a conference in the NFC that's not like the AFC. Because you look across the NFC and you're like, there are some good teams, but no one dominant aside from the 49ers. But the problem is the injury bug is starting to bite.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey's out indefinitely. He's got tendonitis in both of his Achilles tendons. He's
no big deal there.
recently visited the Wonder doctors over in Germany.
Yeah.
And when you go to Germany, you're not going over there to get a checkup. You're going over there for treatment.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
And they can do things over there that aren't allowed over here, basically.
All right, if you're a fan of any football team, and in this case, the 49ers, Shacker loves the 49ers, this is what you don't want to hear from your head coach when he opens up a press conference, and it sounds like he's reading through the yellow pages or the white pages when discussing the injuries on his football team.
Injuries for today, Jacob Cowing, shoulder, won't practice. Conley, oblique, won't practice. Etur, knee, won't practice. D. Winters, ankle, won't practice. Kittle, ribs, won't practice. Fred Warner, ankle, won't practice. Jordan Elliott, knee, limited. Huff, knee, ankle, limited. Kevin Givens, tricep, limited. Flanagan Fowles, calf, limited. Go ahead.
I don't think he even mentioned McCaffrey either, did he?
No.
Because he's on the injured list. So
He ran through 10 names, got winded, looked up in disgust, and said, go ahead.
Meaning, go ahead and ask me questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
How you feeling today, Coach? But that's what it's like. And remember we talked to Billups? throughout last year. He got frustrated, didn't even want to hear from the trainers anymore.
Yeah.
Because every time they came to his office, they were telling him he was going to have a different combination of guys in his starting lineup that night. It's got to be very wearing. It's hard enough to be a coach and try to run a program or a team as is.
Yes.
But then you add the injuries, the things you can't control on top of that, and it's just nauseating. And I feel bad for Kyle Shanahan because he's a great coach, but this is the reality of the NFL, and this is why, as a team, when you get to a certain situation, do the best you can to capitalize, because if you don't, there's no guarantee you're going to get back. And the 49ers, hopefully they'll get healthier as the season moves along, but there's no guarantee there. But you need certain guys to be able to compete for a championship. Usually teams that win titles, there's usually that health factor. Most teams that win titles tend to be healthier throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I've heard people talking about the Western Conference in the NBA chat, and I'm hearing over and over the same thing. Well, it's going to be really close. I would say the team that stays the healthiest is going to win. I agree with that because, every team's got the same thing. And if you lose a couple key guys, you're done. And in basketball, it's even worse because you only play 5 at a time. In football, there's enough guys out there that maybe you can still salvage something. But I would say this is a year that the Niners need to make that step. They're, like you said, Chad, they're running out of time. And this is also a year where, maybe you could get the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and knock them off because they're not playing as well as they have in the past because they're running into the same thing. Salary cap issues and injuries and players that aren't there anymore.
We're going to find out the true value of Patrick Mahomes as this season continues.
Yeah.
All right, here's an update on the Pac-12. This comes from Brett McMurphy of the Action Network. He's one of the best. He says, Godfather, the Pac-12 still needs one more full member, but the league won't be adding another school until media rights evaluation is completed, sources have told the Action Network. This process could take anywhere from 2 weeks up to 3 months. Several schools continue to reach out with interest in joining the Pac-12, but the league is currently not negotiating with any schools about membership. That's according to Brett McMurphy. So they'll get the media evaluations. I'm assuming that those media evaluations will determine the value of each school.
That's what I was thinking.
All of the current members or the conference that will be, and then that way they can start to kind of gauge what they'll be able to get on the open market, right?
Yeah, you might as well do that because that's what it's all about, money. And so, you go in and you say, okay, if we add Memphis, what does that do to how much money we can get for our rights?
Oh, so they'll do an evaluation not just on your current schools and what the value would be, but also what schools should we look to add?
I would think the real value in doing that study is to say, okay, we got one more left. Let's try to grab as much money out of this one as we can. And is there one who could really add a lot of value? Texas State, Memphis, whoever, I don't know, BYU, whoever. There's got to be a real difference in the valuations of some of these schools.
Interesting.
Even Sacramento State, they want to jump from the Big Sky all the way up. And they're building a new stadium. They're doing all kinds of things to get the notice of the Pac-12. I don't know. What's the value of that market? It's borderline Bay Area market.
I wish they could have snagged UNLV.
Oh, what a loss that's going to be. Chad, after just reading some stories about that town is just ready for UNLV to get big. And they're going to pop, and they're going to have all the money they need to run that program and pay all the NIL they need.
It's going to be great to have Gonzaga in the conference for basketball.
Terrific.
So
Huge.
I'm going to be heading down to Phoenix this weekend for the Arizona State-Kansas football game. I was checking the forecast. I know you're into that as well, Godfather.
Oh, yeah.
So the kickoff of that game is going to be at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
We were hoping to get a proper split, like a 1 o'clock kickoff and a late kickoff of 7:30 or 8, because Arizona's also playing at home against Texas Tech. We were going to hit both games.
Yeah.
But the temperature's so hot down there that they had to put both games in a later window because of the temperature. So check this out in terms of what we're in store for over the next few days down in the Tempe area. And this is your type of weather, Godfather. The temperature on Saturday, 108. Temperature at kickoff time, 106. Sunday, 109. And Monday, 108. and this is early October. Isn't that crazy?
You know, you go to the game, you come back to the hotel, and take a little dip in the pool. It'll be perfect. Still be about 95 probably.
Or hotter. It
Yeah.
could still be triple digits
Yeah.
late into the evening time. So that's
Yeah.
what we're looking at down in Phoenix this weekend. But I'm excited about it. Also, I saw McMurphy put this out. So UNLV is going to host Syracuse on Friday night down in Vegas in a football game. McMurphy says UNLV will hold a donut eating contest at halftime of Friday's game with Syracuse. Participants include 10-time Nathan's hot dog eating champion and UNLV alum Mike Sudo, former UNLV offensive lineman Dr. Tony Terrell, and UNLV hoops coach Kevin Kruger. They will see who can eat 24 pink frosted donuts the fastest in honor of UNLV's Breast Cancer Awareness Night. How many donuts could you eat before you get tired of them? Because that's one of those foods that has the law of diminishing returns does apply, because you eat one and it's phenomenal. And then you think, I need to chase that feeling. You eat the second one and the sugar rush, it's a little bit too much. And then inevitably, when you go for the third, you start to feel sick to your stomach. It's too sweet.
It's exactly what I was going to say. If I eat 3, I'll be sick. 4 would be impossible. It's just, and I would have room to eat more.
Yeah.
But it's just, that sugar would make me sick. There's no doubt in my mind. Because you're exactly right. You eat one, man, that was good. I got to have me another one. And by the time you're done with that second one, it's like, give me a glass of milk and hold the donuts.
It's pretty amazing. I had, on that day where I had to go out and pay off my bet to Brian Noe because I lost for another stupid bet, I had to consume, I forgot the number, it was like 6,000 to 8,000 calories in a day, which is well beyond my normal consumption.
Yeah, like 5 times the amount.
I stopped by Mr. Maples on my way over to Red Lobster and ate a dozen donut holes. The first 3 to 4 were amazing, and then with each passing one, the sweetness started to impact me. And I ate that before I sat down for the Admiral's Feast. And then I went into a slumber and took a nap, and then I capped everything off with a Big Mac fries and a 6-piece McNugget, I think.
Oh,
That was a rough day.
you're not used to a lot of sugar either, are you?
I'm not used to a lot of volume or a lot of sugar.
Yeah. But sugar is one of those things that if you're not used to it, it doesn't take much.
But the
to
first
kinda-
few, I felt amazing. Get that
Yeah.
sugar rush. I was like, dude, I
Yeah.
feel great right now. That didn't last very long.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to come back. We got to talk football with Alex Brink, former Coug, and now with E-Force. He is our college football and NFL insider. We'll get his take on the Oregon run game. Is it the offensive line or the running backs? Why the struggles? And what was it like seeing Ashton Jeanty up close and personal in the game last week when he went wild for 259 yards and 4 touchdowns? We'll talk with him next on the Rip City Drive. All right, it's always a pleasure to get a chance to talk with former Coug, now with E4 Sports. He is our college football and NFL insider. It's Alex Brink who's back on the Rip City Drive. So, Alex, let's start with this. You were in person, Washington State and Boise State, and I'm just curious your takeaway of seeing Ashley Jeanty in person, 259 yards and 4 touchdowns. What jumped out at you that makes him so good?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's as real as it gets right there, Ashton Jeanty. He is a special, special player. I think what really jumped out to me was his speed. He's faster than I thought he was. What I saw on tape, I mean, he can catch an edge, and he's gone. He obviously runs incredibly hard. I mean, kind of has that beast mode, Marshawn Lynch-esque style running, like nobody's going to take him down. He's not super tall, 5'9", maybe, but he's 215 pounds. So, he's, like I said, the real deal. I wouldn't be surprised to see him keep putting up those same numbers and be in New York, come December.
Alex, I'm curious what you thought of Boise State, too. Are they you think they're a playoff team at the end of the season, possibly? How good are they?
I think they got a tough schedule, to be honest with you, coming up. I think they're a good football team, and Jeanty is obviously an X factor. But they got a question mark at the quarterback position. Maddox Matson's a young player. He's a sophomore. He didn't, frankly, do a ton against Washington State. They didn't make him do a ton. So I think they've got a few holes, and they got to play UNLV. They got to play Oregon State. They got some more things coming up. It'll be a tough schedule for them. So I'm interested to see. But they definitely showed it on Saturday against the Cougs what they can do.
We're talking with Alex Brink here on the Rip City Drive. How awesome was that Bama-Georgia game?
Unbelievable. I mean, gosh, that's to get those type of matchups right during the season, especially early in the season, the first third, you don't get them often, and it was two really, really good football teams, well coached, and a ton of athletes on the board.
I wanted to ask you about their quarterback, Jalen Milroe, with his development, because he looks like a different quarterback. How much of that is just his work and continue to improve with experience compared to something that Kalen DeBoer and his staff are able to do when it comes to player development?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think Milroe's, really worked hard in the last couple of years to improve his game. I mean, he's almost 73% passing this year. 65, 66% last year. So that's a significant jump. I do think DeBoer and his staff should get a ton of credit for, the scheme partially. I think that's for sure something that really helps a quarterback. I mean, think about what, him and Michael Penix did together. And it's part of that. Obviously, Penix has a lot of ability, but I think DeBoer has a really good feel for how to design offenses and get the quarterback in a position to be successful in the college game. I mean, it's fun to see, and you can see the fruits of it, paying off this year. I mean, gosh, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception from Milroe. I mean, he's doing some special things.
Alex, I'm curious what you think about Oregon's run game. They're still struggling a bit with it, and we're not used to seeing that from the Ducks. Is it still offensive line problems, or can we look maybe at the running back? I know James' long run for the season is 16 yards, I think. What do you think of what's going on with their running game?
Well, I think Bucky Irving was pretty special, and so I think there's a little bit of a drop off there. Not that James and Woodington aren't nice players, but I do think there's a world where maybe folks kind of undervalued how good Bucky Irving was, right? And so there's some of that. There's some offensive line questions. Feels like they haven't played maybe up to what they thought. The center position was a little bit of a question. Has been a little bit up and down. They found a lot of success in the quick passing game, and Dylan Gabriel can get the ball out of his hands quick. So it's almost in a way kind of filled that gap, right? And so I think they need to find a little bit more consistency. But I think the backs, are probably a step down from what they were the past couple of years.
Hey, Alex, how dangerous is that Michigan State game on Friday? Because you got the Ducks playing at home against a lesser opponent, and then you've got that Ohio State game that's sitting out there that will be the following Saturday. How challenging will that be for Dan Lanning to get his guys focused with Ohio State right around the corner?
Well, it's one of those things, where you really want to say for Oregon that, hey, all of those things are out there, right? Like, we know they're there. Ohio State, Friday night game, all these things like factors. So you should be able to lock in, right? You should be able to focus and just take it 1 week at a time. But you're dealing with college kids, and that's hard, right? I saw with Washington State a few weeks ago, the San Jose State game was very similar in that regard. And I think, Michigan State has enough, right? And a coach that knows this team and, some players that have seen them before. So, they're not going to be afraid of the moment. So in that regard, I do think it's dangerous. I mean, the Ducks got to come out and play their best football and get off to a fast start. You can't let Michigan State hang around and feel like they're in it. And that Jonathan Smith and Brian Lindgren are going to dial some things up offensively that can affect Oregon. There'll probably be a trick play or two in there, probably a special team, some sort of special teams play. And so the Ducks got to be focused on those sort of things.
I wanted to ask you about that. You mentioned Jonathan Smith, and I don't think the Ducks will face any team this season where the opposing head coach is as familiar with them as Jonathan Smith will be. How much difference could that actually make?
Well, I think it does matter because, one, with Oregon, right, with the Idaho game and the Boise game in particular, there's some things that got put on tape from a defensive perspective for Oregon where, offenses had some success. And, there's film out there that somebody could look at and say, hey, there's ways to take advantage maybe of Oregon on both sides of the ball. And if there's anybody that would know how to do it and know how to execute it and implement it in a week, it would be Jonathan Smith, right? Because he's done it before. He's had to do it. He's seen this Dan Lanning, the Dan Lanning coach teams. He knows what it takes. And so, I think, again, there's that he's probably most equipped. I just don't know if their roster, top to bottom, Michigan State's ready for it, right? There's so much turnover. And Aiden Childs is a nice player, but he's really young, and playing it often is very difficult. We all know that. So, again, I think Oregon comes away with this one, but don't be surprised to see Michigan State hanging around for a little bit.
We're talking with Alex Brink, E4 Sports, former Coug here on the Rip City Drive. Wanted to ask you about Gonzaga joining the Pac-12 for basketball. How do you like that?
I mean, it's got to be best case scenario for this kind of rebuilt Pac-12, right? Like, you get some great, 4 great teams out of the Mountain West. I mean, great programs, great athletic departments, and they're good. They're good in football, and they're really good in basketball, right? When you think about Boise State and San Diego State in particular, and then you add Gonzaga in the mix, and even though it's basketball only, right away your media rights deal goes up because of the history that Zags have and who they are as a basketball program. You become, a top 4 basketball league right away, probably. And then you have the opportunity now to circle back maybe with some of those AAC schools like Memphis and Tulane then popped up. That sounds great, right? If you get those schools in, now you have a fantastic basketball league, maybe top 3. And then football is really solid, and you could go get a really good media rights deal or split it up, a basketball, football media rights deal. So in the end, I think it's best case scenario. It gives you a ton of leverage moving forward. As you think about building out the media rights deal and going out and getting some more schools.
Okay, they still need that 8th team for football. Any thoughts on who that might be, Alex?
I mean, I think the same teams are continually getting kind of floated around and around, right? It's the hey, can we get Memphis to come back around? Or we're gonna have to pay for it. You've heard kind of the Texas State or UTSA or some of these schools, different schools get floated. Some version, UNLV maybe, I guess, could come back to the table, but it feels like that ship has sailed. I really think the push here is Memphis. Like, that's probably where you end up now that you have Gonzaga, right? Because it geographically is not great, which I don't love, but from a competitive standpoint and from a media rights standpoint, it makes a lot of sense in football and basketball.
Alex, I think they're going to rue the day that they didn't get UNLV. It looks like they're ready to take off in football. There's so much support down there just waiting for them to get to that point where they become more of a marquee team. Don't you think?
I think that's true, but I don't know that I would put that on the Pac-12. I think I would put that on UNLV. I think UNLV made a misstep to take what feels like a large guaranteed, lump sum payment from the Mountain West. That's kind of by way, obviously, of the Pac-12 exit, paying the exit fees of the other schools.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if UNLV had a little foresight, they could, and especially with this Gonzaga news, they could say, boy, like now we could get back to the prominence in basketball. We can build the football program. You're right. The community down there is growing. They could build into it. The reality though for UNLV is they're not there yet. I mean, the last 2 years are their winningest years in football in like 20 years, right? Like they really haven't been there. They're starting to get there. And I think they probably should have taken the haircut to come to the Pac-12 and build with that league. And again, there's still, the door is not closed on that, right? Like it's not totally finalized. So, could, but I'd be surprised if it changes. But, I agree that UNLV would be a great fit for the league.
We're talking with Alex Brink. I need to ask, I got really irritated after the Broncos and Jets game because Sean Payton, Bo Nix, Aaron Rodgers, it felt like a lot of excuse making because of the rain that was coming down and how difficult it was for those guys to throw a wet football. And so I just want to ask you, like, how hard is it to throw a wet football, and what is the key to getting better at being able to handle wet conditions on the football field?
Look, I'm going to be really honest. And I've always been the ultimate quarterback apologist. It's difficult. Like there's kind of a critical point when a football or like the weather is bad enough that it is really difficult to throw a ball and catch a ball. Because here's the thing you got to remember is that for receivers, like the receiver gloves they have, they're not good in the rain. The sticky stuff that they have when it's dry is so slick when it's wet, right? And then you take the gloves off and you've got your bare hands. You can't always keep those dry either. So, it's kind of twofold, right? Like holding the football can be hard if it's wet enough. And then catching the ball, no matter what, when it's wet's hard because it just gets so slick. So it's a real conversation. And if those guys are saying it on both sides, then it was probably true, right? And so you can get better at it in the sense that, you can practice more at it. You can kind of teach receivers different techniques to catch the ball when it's wet. But like, there is a world where it is too wet to throw and catch a football, and like that does happen. And so, and if you're not equipped to run the ball, or the defense knows that you need to run the football, that can really hurt you, right? If you have to throw it in inclement weather.
Okay, what's the key to Jaden Daniels' success? Why is this happening for him?
Boy, I mean, how impressive has he been through the first part of the season? And you got to give some credit to Cliff Kingsbury. It feels like Kingsbury's kind of implementing the plan he always wanted to implement with Kyler Murray, right? But could never quite get on the same page with Murray. Like they were close, but it was never as good as this. It seems like, right? And so I think Jaden Daniels' tools, like he's always been an elite passer and a great athlete. A lot of the concerns maybe for him coming into it were more physical as far as would his body hold up. Could he find consistency in the kind of quick and intermediate passing game? And that's where I think Cliff has done a really nice job is, he's kind of asking Daniels to, execute the quick passing game, like get the ball out of his hands quick, see the field, do that. He uses his legs at times. And then it's like, I'm going to take shots. But I'm not going to ask him to like drop back consistently and work through, mid-range throws as a rookie quarterback, which can be really hard, right? Like they have good skill players. They have good people around them. Utilize those players in the quick passing game and getting vertical, and you can become really efficient. And Daniels has done that. And I think that's really impressive.
Hey, Alex, have you ever had a game where you threw for negative yards and a half? Because Bo Nix at the half against the Jets had negative 7 yards passing. Can you remember just a brutal performance where you're like negative yards and a half?
I mean, I had some brutal performances in the half of football, but I never had negative yards. But I never played in an NFL game, an NFL regular season game. So I'm going to give Bo a little bit of grace on that one in relation to my career. But no, it's pretty hard to do to have negative yards for sure.
Hey, I wanted to go back to Jalen Milroe for just a moment. Were you around him with the Elite 11? Have you spent time around Jalen?
I didn't get to see him in Elite 11. I'm trying to think about the class he was in, but I did not get to spend time around him.
And what have you heard from guys that you've talked to? Because I just like his demeanor and the way he handles himself. Like he seems like a pretty sharp dude.
Super sharp, and really obviously well liked and a leader. got kind of the Malik Willis vibe, right? Malik Willis is a fantastic young man. I have got to spend a little time around him, but he's got those leadership qualities that make a team want to rally around him. Obviously, he's very skilled, but he's I think you start seeing you talked about his development earlier. You start seeing his development and then the production on the field, and you're kind of thinking, oh boy, in a weaker draft class, is he maybe in the front running to be that number one quarterback off the board?
Man, don't you think his play, he's rising up the draft charts, right? He's got to be.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I really believe that. And again, I don't think it's a great draft class, so it's obviously a benefit to him that he's playing as well as he is, because he wouldn't have been in that conversation, I don't think, to start the year.
All right, Alex, you guys have a lot of exciting things going on at E4 Sports as you continue to grow and add different elements to what you guys have to offer. So talk to me about Headquarters Physical Therapy and also the Golf Farm.
Yeah, Headquarters Physical Therapy is our physical therapy partner here in the Portland Metro and Bend area. Just some fantastic physical therapists. They work with some of the best professional athletes in the world, and all different sports, but they've taken that same model and now do the same thing with everyday Joes like myself and others, right, who have, whether it's injuries or you're just trying to stay healthy or you live an active lifestyle, check out headquarterspt.com. It's different than your normal physical therapist. You're going to come see the actual PT for an hour. It's a one-on-one session. You get a ton out of it. They're some of the best that I've ever been around. So check that out. And kind of as a part of that, we've gotten deeply involved with the Golf Farm based in Tualatin, founded by Brian Henninger, former PGA Tour player, really incredible golf instruction. And we are working with them with our physical therapists, our strength training, to do some TPI-based training for golfers who are looking to get better, who are looking to get their body moving right. I mean, as a golfer myself, and you know this, Chad, you got to have all three facets: strength, mobility, and then the skill work. And that's what we're doing down at the Golf Farm in Tualatin. So check out the HenningerGolfFarm.com.
You're a rock star, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your bye week from the Washington State Cougars, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
There you go. Alex Brink. What a stud. I'll tell you what, Godfather, I'm thinking more and more that maybe Jalen Milroe, he's going to play himself right into the first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I would have never thought that.
I think, who was it? Was it Dan Patrick who compared him to Lamar Jackson?
He said he was talking to a scout, NFL scout, who said he's Lamar Jackson who could pass. Some kind of comment about he's a better passer than Lamar Jackson.
It's amazing. Guys like Lamar Jackson have opened up doors for different styles of quarterbacks, because not everyone's going to be the perfect quarterback in terms of a pocket guy like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, or a do-it-all like Patrick Mahomes.
Well, isn't Jaden Daniels doing a little bit of that this year too? I would think.
I think Jaden Daniels is a unique player because he's incredibly accurate when he throws a football.
Right.
He's got a strong arm, but even though he's tall and lanky, he's got great speed. He can run. So and I think Cliff Kingsbury, I forgot who was saying this, but a lot of times coaches, when they look at all the coaches who have gotten their second opportunity. Pete Carroll, the list goes on. Bill Belichick. There's a lot of guys who didn't get it right the first time around, but then when they get that second opportunity, they really start to do things the way that they believe is best. Meaning, if I'm going to get fired, I'm going to do it my way now.
Right.
And I think what Cliff Kingsbury has done is that he's taken a long look at the way he calls a game, and he's like, we're going to do it my way now. And so they're running the football well. He's putting Jaden Daniels in a position to have success. And what I think I told you this yesterday, what the word on I think it was John Middlecoff who told me this, that the word on Kingsbury, that what he does well is that he just takes a player, whatever that skill set is of the player, and then he devises an offense and plays to put that guy in a position to have success. So he doesn't try to change the guy too much.
That's what good basketball coaches do too.
Yeah. So I think Jalen Milroe, all you have to do is find the right team, the right coach that's willing to build that offense around him, much like John Harbaugh went all in on Lamar and said, okay, we'll just devise an offense and build it around your strengths. And they've had great success with that. And maybe Milroe now, because the one thing about Milroe is he's shown that he throws a beautiful deep ball, but he is a phenomenal athlete who can run with power and run with speed. You look at the stress he put on Georgia's defense, and he was outrunning superior athletes.
Yeah. What do you think? I was going to get back to Kingsbury for a second. Can he be happy the rest of his career as a coordinator? Because it looks like he's going to be a great coordinator. Or is he going to get that itch to sit in the big chair?
He'll probably get the itch. And yeah, I think the word, going back to Kingsbury, is like, okay, who is the name is escaping me. I think he's with the Vikings now. Brian Flores, the guy that was head coach at Miami.
Yeah.
The way it was described to me is that Flores and Kingsbury are both phenomenal coordinators, calling offense, calling defense. But the problem is, for opposite reasons, they're not good head coaches because Kingsbury is not a confrontational guy. He's not a disciplinarian, so things get a little bit too loose under his watch, like what happened at Arizona. Flores is too intense and too confrontational, so he rubs guys the wrong way.
Yeah.
So the question is, can those two guys with experience learn to change their personalities to the point where they can be more successful as a head coach? I don't know the answer to that.
That would be pretty difficult for most people. That's a big personality change.
Yeah, because Flores obviously irritated a lot of guys down in Miami.
Yeah.
But he's a phenomenal defensive mind and a great coordinator. So, I don't know. We've seen coaches do that before where they just finally settle in and realize, like, no, I can be fine in this role. You know, like Steve Spagnuolo was a head coach, but then he realized once he got locked up with Andy Reid, like, defense is my thing. And so I'm just going to be the best defensive coordinator I can be.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly walked away from a head coaching job so he could just focus on calling plays.
Yeah. I'll bet he finds more happiness in that, too.
Heck, the money in NFL as a coordinator is good enough to where you can live a pretty good life even if you're not the head man.
Yeah, it might be pretty good at Ohio State, too.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Big thanks to Alex Brink. He is a superstar. When we come back, Rob Parker sounding off on LeBron James. We got to play that.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Godfather, how long have you known Rob Parker, who's now part of Fox Sports Radio?
You know, I met him many years ago on the NBA beat. He was a columnist at Newsday, I believe, and I met him at a Knick game, and we share a real affinity for baseball. He's a Detroit guy, born and bred, and still spends a lot of time there. He owns a barbershop there, I think, but he's really a good guy. You'd love him, really.
I like him. I think he's a great personality and enjoy his insight. Well, he sounded off on LeBron James, who came out a couple of days ago and basically was like, hey, I've got nothing left to prove. I've got nothing left to accomplish. The rest is just gravy. And Rob Parker took exception to that. So let's take a listen to what Rob Parker had to say in regards to LeBron James.
Is there anything left for me to accomplish as a basketball player? No. No. Everything else is extra credit. I'll take it. I'll take it, though. I love it. I love what I do. But I don't need to. No, I got everything.
LeBron, he's got everything? So this season, winning a championship, that's not something to accomplish? I mean, I get it. And I'm always saying that he hasn't accomplished a lot, but why are you playing then? Is it just for pictures with you and your son with the same uniform on, or are you trying to win another championship? What I have to accomplish is to win this fine organization, which did me a solid, put my team, my son.
Wait, did him a what?
A solid.
What did he do for them?
No,
a few years back.
No, he did him a solid by taking a son who any other kid without that name, Kelvin, would not be drafted by the Lakers.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody else averaging 5 points for a bad USC team is getting drafted.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay,
I absolutely have no argument there.
I'm not saying that he couldn't have been a free agent and signed and worked his. That's not what I'm saying. Or he didn't deserve a chance, opportunity. That's the solid they did so that they could do something for LeBron. I'm just saying that if I'm a Laker fan, I want to hear that winning a championship for this organization is what I have left to accomplish. I want to win a championship every year that I continue to play in this league. That's what I want, not I don't have anything to accomplish. I've done everything.
All right, there you go. There's Rob Parker sounding off on LeBron.
Well, he's right. I don't think anybody would question that. LeBron has a tendency to put his foot in his mouth once in a while.
He does it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think he speaks without really thinking through what he's trying to say because a lot of players, look, like we've talked about before, guys sign in different places for different reasons. Sometimes winning is at the top of the priority list. Sometimes it's strictly just to get the most money possible. Sometimes it's to go to a city because your wife is from there or you want your family to be in a certain part of the country. That's fine. Everyone's got their different reasons for doing it.
Yeah.
But most guys will come out and say the same thing. Look, I'm happy to be here because my goal is to bring a championship to this town.
Yeah.
It's called saying the right things, right? And for LeBron, you would think that even at this stage in his career, he would want to be pursuing a championship because he's sitting there with 4. Kobe's got 5, MJ's got 6, and the greats are defined by how many rings they have. I think he also understands that the roster they have and the team they've compiled there in L.A. with the Lakers, it's the same team we've seen the last couple of years. They're not good enough to win a championship, and I think even he knows that as good as he may be, or even if he and AD have another healthy and productive season, it's not going to be enough to get through the Western Conference.
Yeah, I think he was probably thinking that way. He was protecting himself. He didn't want to set expectations too high, which he said the day before. He said, don't put any expectations on us, which is like, wait a second. You say you're the best player of all time, and you're playing with another guy who's going to end up in the top 50 of all time, at least, and you're saying no expectations? We can't even think you should be in the playoffs? I mean, come on. Makes no sense.
Part of being great means that you have to take on expectations.
Yeah, exactly. And the higher, the better, really, because then people think you're a really good player.
Like, for example, whether Patrick Mahomes wants it or not, we assume that he's going to be in the Super Bowl every year because he's the greatest quarterback on the planet, and he's already won multiple titles, and he's got Andy Reid. So regardless of the roster or what type of injuries they deal with, it's like, hey, we expect you to get to the Super Bowl. You're that good.
Well, he's set a standard to where anything less than that is a failure.
Yes. But that's what you want as a great athlete, a great player. You want those expectations to be sky high every year because that means you're doing things the right way.
But you said something at the start that I think is true. You talked about he's saying things that he didn't think about too much before he said them.
Yeah.
I think his ego makes him do that. He thinks he can say just about anything and it's going to be funny and people are going to love it. And he doesn't consider a lot of that stuff about the ramifications of it.
But he also knows he's got his entire PR team.
Well, that's true.
And the other agents of Clutch to go out there and massage anything that he says that might be a little bit upside down.
Yeah, you think those Live Golf guys are doing sports washing? His company does a lot of sports washing for him, too.
Yeah. What you call sports washing, I call ball washing, but it's the same thing.
I don't
same
use
difference.
that term.
But like Rob Parker, for him to come out on that national stage and criticize LeBron, it does take a little bit of guts to do that because you're not going to get access to LeBron now. You're cut out.
Right.
Because that's not going to play well with Clutch and his crew.
Oh, I think they'll even make calls to his boss somewhere and try to get to him that way.
100%.
Yeah, and threaten his job or something like that.
They've done that before.
Yeah, they're vicious. They're not playing.
Advantage for Parker is that he works for a company that's free and clear of those NBA relationships.
Yeah, that's right.
The other companies like ESPN and these other spots that are in bed with
he'd
the
be
NBA.
gone from ESPN right now. They don't brook any bad talking about LeBron. That doesn't happen.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Aaron Fentress is going to join us at 4:20, and then we'll get a Bo Nix update with Brandon Cristal from Denver at 5:20. You can reach out to Dwight at Dwight James. You'll find me there on social media at Chad and Rip City. When we come back, we're going to hear from Aaron Rodgers on his health. How's he feeling coming off a game where he got hit 14 times by the Denver Broncos? And then rivalries in the NFL. How much do they matter today? We'll get to that as well. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. All right, Michael Shacker rocking a little Judas Priest. And I asked him if he's going to go see him at Moda Center next week. He said, no, I've seen him 3 times. I don't need a 4th.
Yeah, they're not playing anything new other than this song.
All right,
I saw them on their farewell tour in 2011. They've been here 5 times since.
Anytime a band says they're on a farewell tour, that means they're going to be around for another 5 to 10 years minimum. That's how that works.
Paul Simon, he quit.
All right, Godfather. Aaron Rodgers has popped up on an injury report for the Jets, and they got a big game this weekend at the Vikings. That's going to be that early game over in London. So Vikings, Jets, and that's a big game for the Jets because right now at 2-2, they're not where they expected to be coming off the loss to Denver, so they need to bounce back and get a win, and we'll see if things can happen. But here's Aaron Rodgers talking about how his body feels after getting sacked 5 times by the Broncos, 14 total quarterback hits. And for those of you who watched the game, I mean, they made him look old in that game. Here's Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. And McAfee sets it up with some humor like usual.
You look bummed out on that sideline, buddy. They got a shot of you, okay, and the internet was doing its thing, obviously. The one that I saw said, when you come out of your ayahuasca trip and now you're a member of the New York Jets. And they kind of dunked on the New York Jets, and they also dunked on you. But that visual of you being miserable on the sideline, I think a lot of Jets saw it, and they're feeling the exact same way. How are we now on Tuesday going into week 5 of the NFL season, knowing there's a lot of football left, pal?
Well, I don't know if I'm the only one that knows there's a lot of football left, but there is a lot of football left. I've done the internet some service. I think we can all agree on that. I've definitely given, I'm sure Zito can pull up, an array of memes, but started with the night in Arizona. That was, the one that I still get all the time. When my helmet, was wet here, my chin strips here. I'm sure Zito can dial that in real quick. But, I'm feeling a little banged up. Took some shots, knees a little swollen, but just kind of wear and tear week 4. I'm just, I'm hoping that we can all have a little perspective here. That seemed like an outlier game. Obviously, Denver has a real solid defense, but, the weather and their defense and our lack of execution made us, pretty bad combination there to only put up 9 points.
All right. I don't know how you read this, Godfather, but for me, I think this is a great sign for the Jets and for Aaron Rodgers. One of the big concerns you and I talked about throughout the offseason was how is Aaron Rodgers going to look at his age, coming off the Achilles injury and having that repaired? Like, that's hard to come back from, but especially for a guy in his 40s playing in the NFL, like it almost seems like it would be impossible. But I watched that entire game last week, and he got hit hard. Not just the 5 sacks, but he was punished throughout the course of the game. And yet here he is coming out of it. Got a swollen knee, a little banged up, but he's going to be ready to go and play on Sunday. And for me, I think that's a good sign. I think sometimes getting out there after what he went through in his rehab and getting the crap beat out of him, it might be a good thing for his confidence to know that, hey, I take care of myself. I did the proper procedure with the whole process coming out of the rehab, and my body's right. I'm going to be okay. So I think in a lot of ways you can look at it and say this is a good thing that he can take that type of punishment and still be good to go the next week.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Chad. The only thing I would say is they better not let that happen too many times this year because one of those shots eventually is going to be a crusher. They just can't let him get sacked 5 times every week. That ain't going to work, I would think. He's got swelling in that knee, and, it's not going to get time to fully go down before he plays again. So you just don't want him hit. They got to do a better job. They just have to.
Well, this is what happens when you piece together offensive lines during the course of an offseason.
Yeah.
It takes time for the continuity for those guys to be able to gel. We're seeing it right now with the Oregon Ducks. It's hard when you have guys in and out, when you need cohesiveness with one particular group more than any other, the offensive line, and they're still working through that. But you can hear it in Aaron Rodgers' voice. He's not concerned. He took a beating last week, but, he's going to continue to move forward. That's just a tough game. They need a win badly. I'm anxious to see how they respond after looking putrid against Denver in this game against the Vikings, who are playing as well as anyone right now in the league. It's a big-time game. I would expect Rodgers to play well. That's what I would expect.
Sure. Yeah, I would too. And it's not like he's not a guy who gets sacked a lot because he knows how to avoid it. He knows how to see the pressure coming and avoid it. He knows how to call plays where he gets a hot read and gets rid of the ball. all that stuff. I was shocked to see them get to him that often. And they got some really good, clean shots at him, too.
Yeah, they crushed him. Absolutely crushed him. That hit by P.J. Locke at the end of the game on fourth down on the blitz, an absolute clean shot. I can't imagine what it's like to be on a blitz untouched and see the quarterback sitting there knowing you get a chance to just unload on him. That's got to feel amazing as a defender. So I would say the Jets, more so than anyone, they need to get in the mix to try and get a wide receiver. Yeah. They need to get some type of a deal done to be able to go out there and get a wide receiver, some weaponry to help Rodgers. I would say Davante Adams, they should do whatever it takes to get him because Garrett Wilson is good, but we saw it in the game against Denver. They don't have any dynamic playmakers because if it's just Wilson, I don't see anyone else that's eye-popping. Lazard was getting a lot of balls thrown to him because Rodgers knows him and knows where he needs to be, but he needs another guy out there that knows him, and they have that sixth sense, the communication, because that's why he's throwing the ball to Lazard. Yeah. He and Wilson don't have that type of connection on the field yet, and he's got Lazard, but Lazard is not, a top-notch receiver. No. I would make a play on Davante.
I'm shocked that they haven't done it already. I think it's just one of those things. If you're going all in, and you must be all in, given Rodgers' age and his contract situation and all that, go get Adams. I mean, I don't think they have any choice. They got to go get him. He wants to come there, and Denver's already said they'd take a second and some other considerations. Give them their second.
Denver, you talking about the Raiders?
Yeah.
Well, you said Denver. So
I'm sorry.
You meant the Raiders.
The Raiders. Yeah, Raiders have already said what they want. They want a second. And other considerations. So give them a second and throw in a couple of 6-rounders or something from the next year.
Yeah.
Whatever you got to do. Just go get them.
And I think what the Raiders have communicated to Adams and his side is, hey, we're going to try and take care of you and get you to where you want to go.
Right.
But we're not going to take back a 6th-round pick after what we gave up to get you a couple of years ago. And that's fair. Yeah. But the Jets have got to do whatever it takes to get it done because you're right. You bring in Aaron Rodgers, you're all in. So do whatever you can to capitalize with Rodgers now because what do you got this year and next year? So you might have like 2 years total with Rodgers.
Yeah.
You might want to make something happen. But they're the Jets, so they'll find a way to F it up. That's what they do. But they need to get him some more help, some playmaking opportunities because you look at the rest of the division, it's really a 2-team race because the Dolphins they're done. Without Tua, they got no chance because their quarterback situation is awful. But they're going to have to challenge the Bills for the supremacy in the division. And the problem is at Buffalo right now, a lot of power on offense. And Josh Allen and the run game, they've got better balance on the offense. We'll see how things shake out. But, the Jets are right there. They're 2-2. What are they, 2-2? They're not out of it. They just had a bad game. Go out there and get Davante Adams. We all want to see it. I want Aaron Rodgers in the postseason for crying out loud because it's good for all of us to be able to watch that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I just don't trust the Jets, Godfather. Coach is dumb. Front office is dumb. Ownership has proven they don't know what they're doing. As you put it a couple of weeks ago, why would Aaron Rodgers choose the Jets? He's better than them. You're better than that, Rodgers.
I know.
It's crazy.
It's all the teams in the league. That's where you want to go.
All right. I want to ask you another question about rivalries in the NFL. In college football, rivalries, even though some coaches try to downplay it, they matter to the alumni. It matters to the towns, the players, everything, right? Oregon and Oregon State's a big deal.
They sell a lot of tickets.
They do. Oklahoma and Texas is a big deal. Bama and Auburn. Rivalry games are great. In the NFL, it feels like rivalries used to mean more. And what I mean by that is that when I was growing up, the Raiders were enemy number one of the Denver Broncos. They played in the same division. They were competing in the same conference. And you had Al Davis and Mike Shanahan who despised one another. And that spilled over year after year into the games that were being played on the field.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the bitterness that exists. Baltimore and Pittsburgh have been great rivals. Physical football games, guys looking to punish one another. But with all the player movement, and then you have new coaches that come in, like in Denver right now, Sean Payton comes in. He hasn't been connected to the Bronco-Raider rivalry in his entire career at all. So I'm wondering, do they matter? Because Sean Payton was asked this at the press conference, and I've mentioned this before. Denver's lost 8 consecutive games to the Raiders. Now, if Pat Bowlen were still around, that would be unacceptable, but he's not. They've got a new owner in the Greg Penner Group. If Al Davis were still around, it might matter more because he would still be talking mad trash about the Broncos the way he did.
Yeah.
But here's Sean Payton ask about being 0-8 in their last 8 games against the Raiders.
Fair question. Look, it's a division opponent. This is our first chance to play a division opponent. Last year, we finished 3-3 in the division. I can't recall a team that has accomplished anything worthwhile, finishing 500 in your division. And then you take a team like Las Vegas. There's a long storied history, and certainly I appreciate that, especially with our fans. And so, it's our job to play our best football this Sunday and get ready to play.
See, he doesn't care. It doesn't matter to him. It's just another division game. And why would it matter to Bo Nix? He's just jumped into the NFL. He's got no connection to the Raider and Bronco rivalry.
Yeah.
It's more important to the fans than it is the players, I guess. They just don't look at the Raiders as any different than any other opponent on the schedule.
Yeah, well, it's not uncommon for the fans to attach more to a certain game than the players do. I think that's common nowadays. And like you say, Chad, there's so much more roster movement now than there used to be. It used to be those teams. I mean, you got drafted by a team and you probably retired from that team. It was very common that you spent your whole career in one spot. Well, there weren't that many trades or free agent things.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, when I started watching the NFL, I watched it for years and years before free agency became a thing. Free agency did not hit the NFL until 1993. So before that, you had what they called Plan B free agency, which was very little player movement.
Yeah.
But when you were drafted by a team, they basically controlled your rights. And so you had the same players suiting up year after year after year. And I guess that's where rivalry is created as well, because you have the same guys on the same teams facing off against each other twice a year. That's where some of the bitterness is created, because these guys bang up on each other each and every year. They're playing for the division crown, playing in big games that matter, and those guys have a history with one another. I guess you need a history amongst the players and, in some cases, the ownership or the coaching situation to really get that type of hatred going, I guess.
Yeah, you think back to basketball rivalries, and it's like the Sonics and the Blazers, they went through some years where it was pretty nasty. Seattle lost their team, so that was terrible, really, in terms of fan interaction. And I can't wait till the Sonics come back, because that will rekindle almost immediately.
Well, that's what made the Lakers-Celtic rivalry so awesome in the 80s, is not only were those two teams competing for championships, but when they showed up in the finals, it was the same guys.
Mm-hmm.
Magic, Worthy, Kareem, Byron Scott, Ainge, Bird, Mikhail Parrish.
Yeah.
Head-to-head.
Yeah.
And there was a history there.
Well, and all it took was one player like Rambus to kind of kindle the whole thing. And he was there forever, and so were all those Boston guys.
Yeah, ML Carr.
Yeah.
Mikhail clotheslining Rambus, and then fights get going and stuff like that. Yeah. It was good.
Yeah, it's like the Pistons. Everybody hated them because they had, Bill Laimbeer.
And Rick Mahorn.
Yeah, and Ricky Mahorn. Yeah, and it was pretty easy to hate them in those days. Part of this, too, though, Chad, is the game's not as rough and tumble as it used to be. So you're not having incidents like that create a rivalry, create hatred. Those things create actual hatred among the fans and among the players.
That's a good point. We'll come back, and Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian will join us. We're going to talk Media Day. We'll get his take on the Blazers. Who's going to start at guard? And then we'll get his take on Michigan State coming to town on Friday, taking on the Ducks. Is it a trap game? Aaron Fentress is up next. All right, we love our next guest. He is with the Oregonian. He covers your Portland Trailblazers. You'll find him on social media at Aaron J. Fentress, and he's back on the Rip City Drive. Aaron, thanks for your time, my friend.
I got beef.
Talk to me.
Here we go.
Why weren't you guys at Media Day?
We were.
You were?
Yes.
Oh, you guys are off in the radio part.
That's right. We were tucked down in
Okay,
Studio
I got
C.
no more beef.
Okay.
I got no more beef. You're okay. You guys are good.
Yeah, what we did is we were tucked down in Studio C because we had a chance to talk to the players one-on-one, and then we had Chris Burkhardt up top.
That.
So there you go.
I forgot about that because I was like, how they aren't here? This is BS. I got to be here. They need to be here.
Well,
anyway,
Aaron,
how you guys doing?
we just didn't want you to live off our good questions. That was the whole thing.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, that's probably smart.
That was
probably smart.
Well, I think that's a good place to start, Aaron. What do you think about this idea that the players are going to determine the minutes and the starting lineup?
That's funny. That's
Wait, no, he said that based on center, right? Wasn't it the center question when Chauncey said that?
No, we
I
talked.
mean, he's not.
No,
Huh?
he
Go
was
ahead,
talking
go
about the entire roster. We talked to both Billups and Cronin, and they were talking about how competition will dictate the minutes that will be doled out.
Okay, yeah. At the media day, he was asked about centers, and he said that. I mean, that's not necessarily wrong. I mean, you set goals and standards, and whoever best meets those goals and standards are going to get more minutes. And then you are, like Chauncey said, the messenger on who's actually reaching what they're, asking them to do. So it's, I kind of get where it can be mocked a little bit and laughed at, but it's not, completely wrong. I mean, Dwight, you're a baseball guy. You're coaching a baseball team, and you tell your pitchers, hey, I need, my starter's got to be throwing 70% strikes. And 5 guys throw 70% strikes, and the rest don't. You've already set the parameters, and those are your starters, and they determine it by their ability to be consistent, right?
Yeah, I agree. We like the idea. You just don't see it too often in major sports now because of all the guaranteed contracts that are out there.
Correct. Now, okay, so that's going to be the interesting thing, right? They say this, but, at some point it becomes clear as to, okay, we're paying this guy X.
Yes.
And so let's take center. Let's say Dominating doesn't show up, and he's not the same guy he was the end of last season. How do you not give that guy minutes because you want him to play well enough so that maybe you can move him? If you let Klingon start and play 30 minutes a game and Aiden's coming off the bench for 15, you're never going to be able to move that guy, and then you're going to have a problem. So it's interesting to see how, with certain guys, how they do things to try and make sure that they can show them off enough to make them, more valuable in the trade market. Because there's some dudes on this team that are going to have to be moved at some time, at some point.
Yeah, now, in light of all that we just talked about, tell me what you think the starting backcourt is going to be.
Oh, my goodness. That is going to be the bane of my existence until it gets sorted out. I swear to you. Okay. To start the season or ultimately when all is settled?
Start the season.
What are you asking? I think that they are handcuffed in many ways to starting Scoot because they've invested and said so much about him, right? Let's face it, history is going to be written that they drafted Scoot, and that's what led to them trading Damian Lillard, arguably the most popular player in franchise history, right? They're going to be tied together no matter what. So if Scoot Henderson is not starting in year 2, then red flags are going up everywhere. And he is really your best all-around true point guard, right? He's probably a better distributor, a better penetrator than Simons, which is one of the reasons I was told why Scoot emerged as a starter coming out of camp last year, and they went with Ant at the 2. And plus, Ant was way ahead of Shaden at the 2 anyway. So you would hope Scoot takes a better jump to where he warrants that opportunity again, because you do need someone who's going to be, more of a true point guard, as opposed to, okay, if I got Ant and Shaden, can Ant handle distributing the ball amongst everyone, as opposed to going out there and dropping 30 on people, if you want more ball distribution. So I think it's going to be Scoot and Ant, because Ant's the best player on the team still. He's got to start, and then you start Scoot, at the point. But I think at the end of the day, those three, their minutes are going to all be pretty similar regardless. That was a pretty political answer. I watched the debate the other day. I learned some things.
Yeah, it was political. Yeah, I'm curious. Chauncey said they want to run. They want to play faster. And I'm wondering, I mean, I think that's a great idea, but I got to tell you, Aaron, I've heard that so many times from basketball coaches at every level, from high school on up. But in the end, I don't know how much that actually happens. What do you think how that's going to end up?
Okay, so I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt because they wanted to do that last year, but one, Ann gets hurt, right? Then Aiden's off to a slow start, and then Scoot's a mess. He's not ready, right? And then you start having other injuries and lineup issues, and then you're playing more younger guys who clearly are not ready to be getting as many minutes and starts as some of these guys got. And so then they're not really capable of trying to run. And last year, I think they finished 23rd or 21st in pace at 97.8 possessions per 48 minutes. And then to make that worse, they were, oh my God, I just wrote about this too. They were last or second to last in turnovers and then also in assists. So when you were trying to run, you didn't have the personnel, and it showed up in the fact that you were generating assists and you were turning the ball over a lot. And if you're running and gunning, you're passing a lot to set up shots. You should get a lot of assists. So nothing went right. So now this year, if they can stay healthy, you got Scoot and Shaden run around with Aiden, who gets up the floor well for center. You got Kamara running. You got Danny who can run. You got Grant who can run. I think it's going to look a lot better. And since their goal is not to win, and they're not going to worry too much, Chauncey said, about how efficient they are necessarily because they want to work through that. So this is going to be the test, though, because when I see Aiden get a rebound, I expect to see guys flying up the court, right? Even if the other team scores and they pass it in quickly, I expect to see guys flying up the court. Because truthfully, is this really a good half-court group? I don't know, because they don't have a lot of, one-on-one dominant scorers, so they need to kind of run. And since if you're not winning, you don't care about how efficient it looks because you kind of want to lose. So cut these guys loose. And if they're not increasing their pace, I'm going to call them out every night just to be like, okay, well, what's happening? What's the point of all this if you're not going to do what you said you were going to do?
Yeah.
Aaron Fentress here on the Rip City Drive. Boy, DeAndre Ayton was lobbying the idea of playing the 4 and then having one of the other bigs, Williams or Klingon, next to him at the 5 when they decided to go big. What do you think about that idea of going big and having Ayton at the 4?
Was that with you guys on the radio?
Yes.
Okay. I think Ayton gets eaten alive at the 4, don't you? I just don't. I don't see how that works. But hey, they don't want to win anyway, so maybe that's a recipe for disaster that gets you Cooper Flag, right? So maybe you play that lineup just so you can lose some extra games. I don't see it long term. Like, I don't believe that is necessarily going to be a thing. I don't think Ayton's ever done anything in his career that makes me or anyone believe that he would be a legitimate starting 4. So no, I don't buy that.
Yeah,
you guys?
No, I think what Dwight and I think is that there will be situations where you can use 2 bigs at the same time depending on matchup, but I don't think that's something you would roll out night in and night out like we saw with the Timberwolves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. I just don't. I don't buy that because I just don't see it. Like, at least with Cat and Gobert, Cat can shoot from anywhere. He can give you what you need from a power forward to have a guy who can stretch the floor at least a little bit. And Aiden's not going to do that at all. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be times that you can play any combination of those 3. 2 of them at a time for a few minutes here and there. But yeah, and it's going to be fascinating to see how they figure out the minutes there. Because you want to showcase Williams because you want to trade him, and you want to get Klingon some minutes, and then obviously Aiden's your best guy right now, and you're going to have to get him minutes. So you only got 48, so you're going to try and squeeze a few at the forward position to help that out. But then again, you got Grant, and you got Denny, and then you got Kamara, who's going to need some time, and maybe Jabari. I don't know. So that's going to be interesting to see how Chauncey works that out. But as we all know, the players are going to determine the minutes with their quality of play, right? So we're good.
I know you don't get to watch practice, Aaron, but what are you hearing? Are you hearing anybody that players are saying has made a big jump? Is there a guy being talked about a little bit?
Actually, we've had 3 media sessions, a couple players. Yeah, no one's really. I mean, the only guy people have been asking about has been Scoot, because I think we saw, like, to me, I saw a lot from Sharp last year before he got hurt that made me believe, yeah, he's the most talented guy on the team. I think Ant's the best player right now, but Shea's the most talented. So I almost expect him, you know, if he's healthy, to be pretty spectacular this year. The guy that some people have mentioned, you know, that Scoot does look more comfortable, more in control, more confident. Now, Billups made the point that he came in really confident last year, and so that the confident level right now, camp to camp, is pretty much the same. But then Scoot's confidence level was shook after the season started. He instantly began struggling. So his confidence level now is higher than at that point, and he's already showing that he's ahead of the game. Now, I jokingly asked him, you know, would this year's Scoot dominate last year's Scoot at this point? And this is after he already said how much better he is right now, but he wouldn't admit that this year's Scoot would dominate last year's Scoot, because he said last year's Scoot was still a dog, and he just couldn't let his ego admit that he could get dominated by himself in a hypothetical that would never, ever happen. But he does believe that he is light years ahead of last year, just because he knows what to expect in so many different areas. He's going to understand the league better. He's going to understand how to defend players better, how they're going to defend him. So I would expect him to make a solid leap. Is he going to leap to transcendent generational standards yet? No, I don't think so. But if you can just get him to just be a far more efficient point guard, that's going to help a lot.
We're talking with Aaron Fentress here on the Rip City Drive. The win total in Vegas for the Blazers set at 22.5. Would you take over or under that number?
Okay, I was just talking about this with someone else. Okay, so if I knew they were going to play the season 100% straight up trying to win as much as possible without any injury shenanigans, right? Which, let's face it, the Blazers have been the masters of that, all right? All day, I would bet that. They won 21 last year with the second most missed games due to injury, with Ayton being a mess the first half of the season, losing. I mean, you have to recite it to you. Everyone knows what happened, right? It was a disaster. So at one point last year, they had Hagan, Kamara, Chris Murray, Rupert, and Minaya on the court together. Like, they were playing a summer league team, a G League. So, you know, if they're reasonably healthy and they play it straight up, they win 30. And I don't think that's a stretch. When you won 20, somehow they still won 21 last year with all that mess going on. Now, they did have Brogdon. The great stat about Brogdon, they were 15-24 in games Brogdon played. Think about that. That's one of the reasons why he had elbow tendonitis for the second half of the season. But anyway, so yeah, I would bet it. But I don't believe they're going to do that. They want Cooper Flagg. They want a top 3 pick. There's no doubt about it. I think people have talked to people about this. This is, you know, not a very well hidden secret. They can't come out and say, oh, yeah, we're going to lose as many games as possible to get Cooper Flagg, but that's what they want. They don't want to make the plan. They don't want to, I mean, God, heaven forbid, they just missed the plan. Let's say they went for the plan and just missed it. Now you're picking, 10th, 11th, 12th, or whatever. So they want to be in that position to get a high pick again, to maybe get Flagg or Ace Bailey or someone like that. And so I don't believe that they're going to necessarily allow themselves to win 25, 26, 27. Therefore, I just wouldn't touch it. Because I think they could go under, but I think they could still go over, be right at 23, 24, and you lose your money if you bet under. But if they're playing straight up, I go over all day.
Aaron, let me shift to football for a minute. Do you see tomorrow night's game? The Ducks are playing Michigan State, and they got Ohio State next week. Do you see a bit of a trap game coming for them?
No, they're going to destroy Michigan State. Michigan State's got nothing. They got nothing. Their defense is weak. Their quarterback has 8 interceptions already. The rest, obviously, I don't know, Child from Oregon State. Their third down numbers have been good, but that's a little skewed by opponents and situations. They have no offense. I think Oregon boat races them. I don't think that they have any type of problem whatsoever with any type of trap game or letdown or looking ahead. I think it's 47-17. That's my number.
Wow.
It's going to be easy. All right, Aaron. Oh, real quick, with the Ducks running game, do you think it's an issue of not having a big-time back like Bucky Irving, or is it still the offensive line, the issues up front that are causing the lack of pop in the run game?
Yeah, the O-line clearly has been better the last couple of weeks, but they have not demonstrated, or shown very many explosion plays in the run game. We're used to those here, like Bucky on back to Verdell, Kenyon Barner, DeAndre Thomas, LaMichael, et cetera. Like, we're used to seeing those guys hit a hole and boom, they're gone for a big gain, and we're just not seeing that. And that's one of the main things that slowed down the offense. And it's something that concerns me for the Ohio State game. It's going to be difficult to dink and dunk and go on long drives against an Ohio State and to not have that threat. I think it's going to be bad news. So they need to somehow figure out how to develop bigger plays in the run game. And it's not like James's yards per carry average is bad or has been bad. He just doesn't have that same burst, right? I mean, it's not just me, is it? You guys seeing the same thing. He just doesn't have that instant acceleration, that breathtaking, like, whoa, there he goes, type of speed. And without that, that's, Oregon traditionally has had that, and not to have it is going to be kind of difficult to overcome, I think, long term.
All right, he's with the Oregonian. He covers the Portland Trailblazers. Aaron J. Fentress on social media. Thanks for your time, buddy. It was great to catch up. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care. Bye.
All right, there you go. Aaron Fentress. I agree with him. If they were going to play it straight up with all their guys, they'd easily get over.
Yeah, I agree.
The 22.5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know how the season's going to play out yet.
Yeah, and there's always a possibility of a trade, too, at some point, either before the year or at the trade deadline, depending on how it's going. I think when they get a little more clarity on who their long-term players are going to be, the other guys are going to get moved.
All right, we'll come back with a Major League playoff update with the Godfather. We're going to head to Denver at 5:20, talk to Brandon Cristal, and get a Bo Nix update ahead of the Raider game coming up on Sunday. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Godfather, let's talk a little baseball. I just got this note. The Dodgers are going to start Yamamoto in game 1 of their division series against the Padres. It was going to be Flaherty, but now they're going to go with Yamamoto. What do you think about that?
Surprises me a little bit. I don't know. Yamamoto hasn't been able to kind of recapture what he had at the start of the season, and he hasn't been able to go deep into games. So maybe they start him and know they'll have a healthy bullpen to help him out later on in the game. But I don't know if it's going to matter. I really think the Padres have a real edge pitching-wise. I like their pitchers. I like their bullpen. I think they're really tough. And I think otherwise the two teams are about even. You'd think, they can't match up to the Dodgers offensively. I tell you, they score runs. The Padres can score runs. They have some good hitters. And we'll see. The Dodgers have not been potent in the postseason the last few years, as you know.
That's putting it mildly. Yeah. Their pitching is a serious problem.
It is, yeah.
Injuries have derailed their pitchers.
They had a great staff. Young guys throwing hard, but now they're all hurt. You pay the price for that velocity, I'll tell you that. Those guys always get hurt.
Glass now not being available is brutal.
Yeah. Kershaw
with the toe issue, that's a problem.
Yeah. He's getting towards the end of the trail, too.
They're in trouble. I can't believe that you say that about the team with the best record in the majors, but they're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, you compile that record over 162 games, but you get to the end of the year, you're very often not the same club that you were even halfway through the year, and they're not.
Well, I guess, of course, if their bats are hot, if you get Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman going off at the same time, then it's a different ballgame. But the problem is when you face good pitching in the postseason, it's hard to get those bats rolling.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. If they get those three guys going, they can beat anybody. There's no question about it. They're a really good club. Their peripheral players, their role players are all good. Their bench is pretty good. I think they're well managed. It's a good club. They were my pick to win it all the way along, but not necessarily now.
All right, what do you think about this note here? The Tigers are the fourth team in history to win a playoff series after being 10-plus games behind of a playoff spot, at least 110 games into the season. The other teams that they joined, the 2011 Cardinals, 69 Mets, 64 Cards. All three of those teams went on to win the World Series. And as you pointed out, the Tigers have good pitching.
Yeah, they do. And I just don't know what to think about them. They're so hot. They've had to play so well just to get this far. And they'll tell you, we didn't get this far just to go this far. And I just don't know I don't know how to project them at all. I know they have a really good manager in A.J. Hinch who got a measure of revenge against the Astros by taking care of them in a sweep in the first round. Good for him, too, because he took the rap for all that cheating. The players did. The players all turned state's evidence, so to speak, and testified and got immunity for it. None of them got suspended, but Hinch got suspended for a year.
It's crazy. We've got one of the wild card series that remain. Right now, top third in Milwaukee, Mets, Brewers, scoreless. And the winner of this will move on in the postseason. What do you think is going to shake out here?
Well, I'd like to see Milwaukee win just because Pat Murphy is there. He used to coach in the Pac-12 for years at Arizona State. He's a good guy. Everybody loves him. And he's taken over for Craig Counsell, who departed Milwaukee, which is like his home area. And he departed for the Cubs, thinking he was going to where the grass was greener. And here the Brewers are again in the playoffs, and the Cubs are not even close. So I'd like to see them win. But, the Mets have really had to battle uphill the whole second half of the year. They won't die in this game. They won't quit. They could get beat, but they won't quit.
All right, what are your thoughts on the Tigers and Guardians?
Well, I've liked Cleveland all year long, and I still think Cleveland's going to win that series. They have the best closer in the game. They score runs. They have a great third baseman. Stephen Kwan in left field has been a great two-way player for them. I think they'll win it. It just bothers me that those teams that sit out for almost a full week, Chad, they have a little trouble getting going in the second round. So we'll see.
What about the Royals and Yankees?
Well, Kansas City's a unique situation. They lost 104 games last year. And here they are in the second round of the playoffs. That's never happened before. I don't see them beating the Yankees, but I didn't think they'd beat the Orioles either. That's another team with pretty good underrated pitching.
All right. How do the Brewers or Mets match up with the Phillies?
I think the Phillies beat either one of them. But again, I have this whole thing with these teams sitting out. They have trouble getting their bats going when they've sat that long. So their pitching staff will be rested. They have two great starting pitchers. So I would still say the Phillies are going to win that series.
So do you think the Padres sneak past the Dodgers?
I think they have a real shot at it. Yeah, I do. But I tell you what, if you're going to just watch one series, pick the Padres and the Dodgers because those two cities hate each other. We've talked about it. The Padres are trying to keep Dodger fans out of their ballpark, and it's just the fans hate each other. The players are not real kind to each other either. I think it has a real potential to be a explosive series.
Yeah, what the Padres are doing is that based on zip code, billing zip code for your credit card, if you are anywhere near a Dodger zip code, they're not going to sell you tickets.
Yeah.
And they've got this mapped out all the way down to Arizona.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, isn't it? The only thing that'll mess them up, you mentioned it earlier, secondary market. People are going to buy tickets in San Diego, turn right around and sell them to Dodger fans for probably a lot of money because they're going to be hard to get.
Triple the price.
Yeah.
At least.
I'm surprised you're not in on that.
Well,
you're kind of an amateur ticket broker, Chad.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's not.
Because if they're limiting who can purchase tickets, Dodger fans, they're going to buy tickets regardless of price. So they'll be hard up looking to get there. You're right. I might have to jump on and grab some Padre tickets.
Yeah, they won't bar this zip code up here. They just figure a long-suffering Padre fan living up here.
So Saturday is going to be awesome. At 10:08 on TBS, Tigers, Guardians from Cleveland, Game 1. At 1:08 on Fox, Brewers and Mets taking on the Phillies in Philadelphia, based on who wins the game tonight. At 3:38 on TBS, Royals at the Yankees, Game 1. And then 5:38 on FS1, the Padres and the Dodgers from Los Angeles. So that's good. That's a good day of baseball right there.
It is. Yeah, some good teams are left. Very good teams.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the Dodgers. I've been watching them all year, and I just can't believe that they get to this point in the season and their pitching is a major question mark. And that's the last thing you want going into the postseason.
Yeah, but I will say this, Chad. You've won it all year, Yankees, Dodgers, World Series. They're both still alive. You still have a shot at that.
But think about how great of a series that would be. You know, the networks, the idea of having that would be, it's like too good to be true. But having Ohtani and Judge head-to-head in the World Series, the two best players in baseball on that stage, we need that. That'd be awesome.
It would be really fun. Yeah.
That's why it's not going to happen, because it's too good to be true.
Yeah. And baseball's never that lucky getting a matchup like that.
No, they'll end up getting like the Royals and the Padres or something just god-awful that no one wants.
Yeah, it's like the Guardians. Nobody knows the Guardians.
No one wants the Guardians in the World Series, except for Stephen Kwan's family.
That's right.
Yeah.
And assorted Oregon State grads. Yeah.
You're right. So a small fraction of Beaver Nation and the Kwan family, they want that to happen. No one else in the country does. I do. I want the Dodgers and Yankees. It's a classic rivalry, and it would be awesome.
You would think really good ratings.
Oh.
Yeah. I do remember one year, though, where they had the Subway Series, Yankees and Mets.
Yeah.
And people thought, a ratings bonanza. Turns out nobody outside of New York wanted to watch that.
Yeah. Let's go blame the Mets for that, too. They're the Mets.
I know.
Thanks a lot, Mets.
Yeah.
People think New York, and it's like, well, the Jets aren't exactly the Giants, and the Mets aren't exactly the Yankees.
Yeah, and the Nets aren't the Knicks.
The Nets are not the Knicks.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
It is. Same town.
Yeah, the original ones are the ones that have the edge, the ones that were there first.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the Rib City Drive. Brandon Cristal at 5:20 with a Bo Nix update. You want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. I was a little concerned there, Shacker. It sounded like the studio might be haunted once again. We had music, then your computer disappeared, and then the music came back. Nice work.
Too early. It's not Halloween yet.
All right, FanFest is coming up on Saturday, and it's free, which is awesome for everyone. It's going to be at 2 o'clock, October 5th, Saturday. The doors are going to open up at 1 o'clock, and the sooner you get there, the better the seats that you're going to get. They're going to have everything there for you to enjoy the day. Presented by Daimler Truck North America. There's going to be great experiences for Blazer fans, food, games, giveaways, and fun for everyone. And you can claim your free tickets. Just go to Ticketmaster.com. But FanFest is coming up on Saturday, and it's going to be a big-time event for everyone. And, I mean, they've been doing FanFest for years, but I got to give them the franchise credit. They do a heck of a job with that. And it seems like the players enjoy it as well, putting on a show for the fans.
You know, I always loved getting there early and watching the fans race in to get those courtside seats and the looks on their faces. A lot of those people can't afford to go to games very often. And to get there and get premium seats out of it, they are so happy, especially the kids. It's great. It's a great one to take your kids to.
They're going to have a Pop-A-Shot and concourse games. Daimler Truck North America's Western Star Truck. Fans' Choice MVP voting and award, the Rip City Kids Club giveaways, Rip City Remix giveaways. They're also going to have a T-shirt toss courtesy of Daimler Truck North America, the Rip City Kids Zone Club, and music provided by DJ OG1. You'll have performances there by the Blazer Dancers Stunt Team and Rip City Crew and much more. So join the Trailblazers. 2 o'clock Saturday at Motor Center. Doors will open up at 1. And all you have to do is simply go to Ticketmaster to claim your free tickets. It's that simple, my friends. Get it done. Make it happen. All right. So we're going to talk with Brandon Cristal coming up in 20 minutes. We'll get a Bo Nix update. The Broncos are 2-2. Very bizarre. They lose the opener in Seattle. Then they come back home and put on a horrendous performance against Pittsburgh and score 6 points. Then they rout the Bucs on the road and somehow get a 10-9 victory over the Jets on the road. Back-to-back road wins for the rookie quarterback, and now they have a chance to move to 3-2 on the season with the win over the Raiders at home. And back-to-back home games. They'll play the Raiders this week. The Chargers will be in town the following week. It's not a bad spot to be in if you're Bo Nix.
No, not at all. And really, he's survived these games so far without, looking like a fool, really. I mean, he's gotten through. He's got his coach backing him. He's scored 2 touchdowns and passed for another. His stats are not good, but the coach and his teammates seem 100% behind him. They're 2-2. If I would have given the schedule, if I would have told you that at the start of the season, I don't think you would have thought they'd be 2-2.
No, I was expecting like 1-3.
Yeah.
But doesn't the coach have to back Bo Nix right now? He kind of handpicked him.
Of course.
So when Sean Payton says nice things about Bo, I'm like, well, whatever. You're supposed to say that. I do pay attention to what the teammates say. Especially the veteran players, because if you got a guy at quarterback that's not getting the job done and is a buffoon, the vets aren't going to be down with that. But they all seem to be pretty supportive of Bo and his work ethic and his process and what he's going through. And I think players are smart enough to understand that being a quarterback in the NFL is hard, but especially as a rookie when you're learning on the job, on the fly, there's going to be mistakes that come the way. There's going to be miscommunication, bad throws, turnovers. Like it's just part of the process. Yeah. Misreads. And plus, and then Bo has to do a good job of taking the blame even when it's not his fault. Because sometimes guys are going to run the wrong route.
Yes.
Or guys will miss an assignment and he'll get sacked. You just learn to take the blame for everything and move on because his teammates will appreciate that.
Yeah, and he's still upright. He hasn't had a serious injury yet. And he's been able to avoid a lot of sacks, I think, by scrambling or by just unloading the football.
That's smart. Get down. No need to take unnecessary hits.
Yeah. Well, he had a ringside seat to watch Aaron Rodgers get abused last weekend. He doesn't want any part of that.
Man, Aaron Rodgers got messed up, Godfather. He got
They
roughed
mugged
up.
him. They mugged him. It was amazing.
All right, so we've talked to Aaron Fentress. We also spoke with Alex Brink. They both tend to agree that the drop-off in the backfield for the Ducks, not that James is not a good running back, but when you lose a guy like Bucky Irving, there's going to be drop-off there. You don't have the same type of explosion and speed from your tailback. That's definitely part of it. The good news is for the Ducks, I think Fentress mentioned this, the offensive line is getting better. It's not where they want it to be, but it's better than what we saw over the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he makes a valid point, too. It's not just Bucky Irving. They have a pretty good lineage of explosive running backs going back to LaMichael and in between. You know, they've had very explosive runners who could, you know, dash for 50, 60 yards. And they're just not seeing runs like that. They're not seeing guys just break away and bust out.
I mean, ever since I've been here, they've had good running backs.
Yeah, that's funny.
Jonathan Stewart was amazing.
Whew.
Reuben Drones was a terrific running back who ended up having a very productive pro career. I mean, Derek LaVille. I mean, there are a bunch of guys who have gone on to have very productive NFL careers.
LeGarrette Blount. You know, really, they've had a lot of them.
Blount was a great running back.
Yeah.
He was terrific. And then he went on and was very productive in the NFL.
Yes.
So you get accustomed to those guys. And then, you know, every once in a while you're going to have a bit of a drop-off because some of the guys you bring in just aren't the same type of player or they're not at that level. And so there's a bit of a drop-off. And then when you combine that with subpar offensive line play compared to what they're accustomed to, then you're going to see the fall-off there. But hopefully with the continued improvement with the offensive line play, because I'm assuming to beat a team like Ohio State, you got to have a little more balance on offense. You got to be able to hit a team like that with run and pass.
Yeah.
Because if you become one-dimensional, good teams are good enough to be able to shut that down.
And I think Aaron actually made a really good point, though, about, 11, 12 play drives where you're, dinking and dunking and all that. I think that gets harder against a big physical team like Ohio State.
Well, that's why Vic Fangio went with that, cover two concept where you got the cover two shell where you got your two safeties deep. His whole philosophy is it's like, okay, we're not going to let you beat our defense with plays over the top, the explosive plays, because that's what defensive coordinators are worried about. And that's why you've seen so many teams adopt that strategy in the NFL. But the part of that philosophy is that if you're not going to beat us with the big play and we force you to go 8, 9, 10 play drives, we think that somewhere along the line you're going to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to have an errant pass. Someone's going to miss an assignment. If we continue to hit you, there might be a fumble.
Yeah.
It's hard to execute perfectly for 12 plays.
Even like a 15-yard penalty for something. Anything can set you behind
drive
the chains.
Yeah.
Crazy.
All it takes is one holding penalty, and it's like, for the most part, there goes that drive.
Mm-hmm.
10 yards is pretty punitive when it comes to punishment. Move you back 10 yards, and you're that far behind the chains against a good football team, good luck with that. So I do expect Oregon to win on Friday. I don't think they're going to lose that game, but I would not lay the 25 points because I just don't know what their focus level is going to be. They're kids. We all want to think that the guys are going to show up and play every game the same way, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's easy to lose focus because Michigan State's not an appealing matchup. They're not as talented, deep, and the game doesn't have as much riding on it like the Ohio State game does. But that's where those games get dangerous. You lose focus. You're not paying attention to detail the way that you should. You make a couple of mistakes or turnovers, and then all of a sudden that team's got a chance, in the late third or early fourth quarter.
And these players, they already know how much hoopla, how much fuss is going to be made over that Ohio State game. I mean, that town's going to be crazy all week long. It's a festival. I mean, one of the biggest games in school history in terms of a home game, new conference, against a top team and a team here with a lot of hopes and dreams. It's going to be something.
And it's got national championship implications.
Sure.
Because if you win the game, you put yourself in a great position to get an at-large bid if you don't win the conference. But you put yourself in a great position to get yourself in that Big Ten title game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what you want. Because if you get to the Big Ten title game and you've got a perfect record or you got one loss, that your chances of reaching the playoff, regardless of what happens in that game, it's astronomical. It's huge. So we'll see how things shake out. I know Oregon will be ready for Ohio State. I just don't know how ready they're going to be for Michigan State coming in. And, for Jonathan Smith, I think teams that have nothing to lose are dangerous. They're 3-2. They haven't been awful this year. They're obviously rebuilding. But those type of teams are dangerous because there's no pressure on them.
Yeah. Yeah, Jonathan's going to have something for him. He is. He's going to have some trick plays. he's going to empty the playbook for that game. And I think defensively, he's probably got as good a clue on stopping them as anybody does.
Yeah.
He's faced them enough times.
All right, here's the update from Brett McMurphy on the Pac-12. He says the Pac-12 still needs one more full-time member, but the league won't be adding another school until media rights evaluation is completed. This process could take anywhere from 2 to 3 months. Several schools continue to reach out with interest in joining the Pac-12, but the league is currently not negotiating with any schools about membership. So you add Gonzaga for basketball. You still need to add another member for football. So they'll go through the media evaluation, and I'm assuming once you know the value of the conference, then you kind of have a dollar figure amount. And then also you might be able to get an idea of what schools you might want to look to add, because not all schools are created equal, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming an evaluation would tell you that, right? Okay, this is where you're at now. If you add these schools, this is what it would look like.
Yes. Yeah, because it's all about the media rights deals. That's what this whole thing's about. How much can you get for TV? How much will you get for your TV package? And that's going to depend on where you're located. Where are your teams?
Sacramento State probably does not increase the value of your conference too much.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, the Bay Area market. I don't know. It is kind of considered Bay Area market. So
is Sac State making a push by letting everyone know they've got a stadium coming and all that stuff?
Well, they're what are they calling it? Hornet? No, it's something 12. SAC 12, I think they're calling it. Yeah, SAC 12, SAC 12. It's a big movement. The president, owner of the Kings, is going to let them play conference games in his arena where the Kings play. And then they got the new stadium they're building, which only seats, I think, 25,000.
What are they going to do, call it the Hornets' Nest?
Probably. Yeah.
That's not a bad name for a stadium.
You should look up the renderings. It kind of looks like a hornet, like a big, giant hornet. It's got a funny roof on it.
Their mascot is called Herky the Hornet. Have you met Herky?
No, I can't say that I have. No. Herky. Oh, God.
I love that. Sacramento sports teams participate in NCAA Division I FCS for college football. Sacramento State's colors are green and gold. Its nickname is the Hornets. Its commonly used phrase is Stingers Up, and its mascot is Herky the Hornet.
My motto, too. Stingers Up.
Stingers Up. All right, we'll come back, get a Bo Nix update. Can they please end the losing streak to the Raiders? Is that too much to ask? And I think Dwight's got a good question. Was last week against the Jets, was it a roadblock or was it progress?
Yeah.
Was it a step back or progress, Godfather?
I don't know. I'm going to ask, though.
I'm not sure either. I like the win, but it's one of those wins where you're like, ew.
Yeah, pretty ugly.
All right, Brandon Cristal is coming up next.
The Rip City Drive presents the Bo Nix Update.
Nix takes a shotgun snap, four-man rush, throws back to the end zone. Sutton's there, makes the catch, touchdown Denver.
Here on 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, our next guest is from one of our sister stations in Denver, 850 KOA. He is on social media at BK Denver Sports. Brandon Cristal is back for another Bo Nix Update. Brandon, good afternoon, man. Thanks for making time for us.
Of course, Chad. Always good to talk to you, bud.
Well, I want to know, I got to admit, I was surprised. I'd never heard players and coaches go on and on about the rain like we saw in New York on Sunday with the Jets and Broncos. How bad was the rainfall in the first half?
It was just constant. So it wasn't that it was terrible. It was just constant. And what's funny is I lived in New York 3 different times and remember days like this. But as I was pulling up to the stadium, I was curious what the crowd would look like because having gone to both Jets and Giants games, Giant tailgates can be kind of lame because I guess it's cool. It's, kids, dads, grandpas that have been going to Giants games forever. Jets games have always felt more social and a little bit more of a mixed crowd, men and women. And so it wasn't really cold. It was in the high 60s. There was no real wind. I guess there was maybe a little on those last 2 field goals. But it was just raining the whole time. And I think people were resigned to the idea, hey, we're going to be soaked today. We'll have dry clothes in the car. And we're going to go out and tailgate like we normally do and then go get wet the entire game. And it just never really let up. And even when we thought we didn't, and from where I was sitting in the press box was where a bunch of the Jets legends were right below us in this kind of, I guess, bigger box that also had seats. And you could see there was, a huge puddle. And there was only a couple times you'd look down and rain wasn't hitting it, right? So even though you couldn't see it on TV, it at least as constant as it was, or out the windows from the press box, you could look down at the puddles and have a better sense of it. And not only did the Broncos talk about it, but Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee's show brought it up too, that it just never really went away, and it wasn't necessarily in the forecast, even though it had rained a bunch on Saturday and kind of throughout the week. And even when the Broncos were in West Virginia practicing, they had to deal with some rain.
Okay, Brandon, this has bothered me for the last couple of days. I'm trying to figure this out. Big win on the road, I think, against a quality team, or we think a quality team. But you look at the game, was that a setback for the Broncos and Bo Nix, or was that progress?
I think it's hard to quantify. It's certainly hard to say that it was progress. But what's interesting, because I had it in my head, right? We kind of create our own narratives. You cover enough games, like, okay, this is why I think some things happen. And you could tell Bo was just off the mark on some throws. But unlike, say, in Seattle where he's throwing into triple coverage, it wasn't that. He was short to Dulcich. He was long to Troy Franklin, and I don't know if that's weather-related or whatever. But there were a couple throws. He sails a couple guys, but it doesn't come anywhere near the DBs, so there's not going to be a playmate on the ball. So I was ready to ask Sean Payton, even more broadly, when you've got a quarterback that's just off the mark a little, so he's not making a terrible read or even a terrible throw that gets you, that causes a turnover or gets you in jeopardy or whatever, what do you say to him? It's sort of like when a kicker misses a kick. Is a special teams coach going to say, hey, man, you should have done this differently, or is it we got to make that kick? But I never got there because they kept talking about the weather, and then before I had a chance to talk to Sean on Wednesday, I had heard Jake Plummer say that he thought that a lot of Bo's throws in the last couple of weeks when they weren't on the money were bad misses. And you look at his accuracy at Oregon, and even, certainly at times at Auburn, we know how accurate he is, and Sean's told us over and over about how accurate he is and how in this pro day he didn't put the ball exactly where it was supposed to be on only one of the 38 or 39 throws, whatever that number was. And so you didn't have any turnovers for the second straight week. You didn't have any sacks. So I think you have to look at that as progress, especially in a world where Sean Payton is quick to blame quarterbacks for sacks a lot of the time. And so he didn't throw the ball great, right? You can't 60 yards, -7 at halftime. But when it was time to make a play, and he did almost miss Cortland Sutton a little too long in the back of the end zone, but credit to Cortland for coming down with the ball and getting his toes in or his heels in or whatever it was. So he did make enough plays, but it's more, can it be improvement by not making mistakes? And are they all building blocks? And we really won't be able to answer this until the last month of the season, I think, and unless he rips off 3 or 4 straight wins and looks lights out. None of us are predicting that, but I don't think it was a setback. I just don't know if it was, a huge leap forward, whereas maybe that win against the Bucs felt like a much bigger step.
Brandon, Sean Payton has talked about the other guys on the team stepping up around Bo to make plays, so it was really nice to see Javonte Williams get going. What was the change Sunday that allowed Javonte to finally get off in the run game?
I don't know if they can pinpoint one thing, and sometimes you just just need it to click, right? I don't think it was the complexity of the playbook or any of that. I mean, Javonte was here last year. Javonte was, I think, valedictorian at his high school, so it's not that it's something I'm not even going there. It just wasn't really working. But also, Sean has talked about not really knowing how to handle a 3 running back rotation. And so whether that's Audric Estime when he's healthy, or in this case, Tyler Bidet, who played really well against the Bucks, and then you obviously have to get McLaughlin on the field because Jalil's just so fast. You have to find snaps for him and touches. That Javonte, who looked the best of all the running backs consistently throughout camp and came in 11 pounds lighter because Sean was watching old North Carolina tape and said, hey, I want this back. What'd you weigh there? And he's like, oh, I don't know, 219, 220. And he was over 230 when he was having this conversation towards the end of their spring, early summer, OTA workout minicamp period. And so he looked like he was going to be the back we thought he might be before he tore his ACL in week 4 against the Raiders, who they'll see Sunday a couple Octobers ago. And so I think that part of it was maybe opportunity. Bidet fumbles, gets hit, and you don't know. It's obviously scary when you see a guy collapse on the sideline, and he ended up on the same flight as me coming home, coincidentally. But it allowed for them to not have to think about rationing touches, if you will, or carries. And then the O-line played. I mean, Quinn Meinerz played better. Alex Palczewski, in his second start at right tackle, looked really good. And there were holes and there were cutback lanes. And I think that it all just kind of clicked. Now, if they can do it again against the Raiders and Javonte really starts to get going, then you're going to feel like they've got something. But 2 weeks in a row, they've had much better rushing games. And when Bo Nix isn't your leading rusher and it's a running back that's north of 70 yards, you're feeling better about
it. Curious, that was quite a game by the defense, I thought, and really beat up Aaron Rodgers. How has Vance Joseph been able to turn everything around?
It's, I think, a couple of things. The rough start last year, and certainly the 70 points against the Dolphins, was as bad a performance as you'll see by any defensive unit or defensive coach. He didn't have Justin Simmons in that game, and Justin wasn't going to be the difference in the game, but Justin was the guy that got everybody in place. And that was early in the year. I think that was week 3. Vance was, I think, clinging a little too much to what Vic was doing and to what Ejiro Evero had done the year before that really worked, and not necessarily being himself, right? Vance grew up under Wade Phillips and being aggressive and sending blitzes from all over. And throughout the middle part of the year, when they win those 5 straight games and they get 5 takeaways a game and playing at a historic clip, it was because Vance was a little more true to himself. So you come in this year and you're just building off that, and everything worked there, whereas the offense certainly plenty didn't work, and you're already switching quarterbacks. And so you lose Justin Simmons, that hurts, but you get Alex Singleton back. Now he is, of course, out, but you've got your quarterback there to call the defense, because midway through the year, he and Josie Jewell actually switched, and Alex Singleton was calling the defense. But I think the biggest change, because Zach Allen was nonstop last year too, he's just, I think, more effective, but I think it works in concert with, they traded for John Franklin Myers, who on the same Jets team 2 years in a row destroyed the Broncos. And, I work with Big Alfred Williams, who played defensive end and outside linebacker in the NFL, and I remember 2 years ago, he's like, man, this guy, JFM, or whatever he called him, he's like, he's a problem. And then he, of course, was. He reminds me in some ways of like Derek Wolfe, who played almost a decade here in Denver and never made a Pro Bowl. I'm not saying JFM won't, but it's just made them more stout against the run. And then DJ Jones, who all those years in San Fran was really good against the run. Year 1 in Denver, he was really good. Last year, he wasn't. But those 3 up front are really setting a tone. PS2 is the best corner in football, and that's allowed him to cancel out the other team's best receiver. And they're going to have to worry about that this week because no Devontae Adams. But then Brandon Jones, who came in for Justin Simmons, is right now, I think according to Pro Football Focus, the 10th best defensive player in football. He had an interception and a fumble recovery against Tampa, and he had a forced fumble the other day on that first possession that turned the ball over and gave the Broncos the ball in the 30, that they ended that possession with the ball in the 50 and had to punt. But anyway, Brandon Jones has been really good. And so I think it's a comfort level for VJ to call what he wants to call and have confidence in his calls being executed. And then the players going out and making plays and adding just a small piece, but somebody like JFM, who's not a small guy, but that type of addition has been a huge, huge help.
We're talking with Brandon Cristal, 850 KOA in Denver. You and I grew up with this. We understood rivalries in the NFL when they meant something a little bit different. The Broncos, this is troubling. They've lost 8 straight games to the Raiders, and I'm just wondering, is there any talk of that amongst the players and coaches? I heard Sean Payton's comments, and I think he just looks at it as another division game, and he doesn't have the history with the Raiders like Shanahan or Elway or some of the others did, or even Pat Bowlen. So how do how are the players and the guys looking at this losing streak to the Raiders, and does it matter to them?
I think it does matter, and Bo Nix maybe is the best example. He understands that what rivalries mean, right? He grew up where the Iron Bowl was the biggest game in his house, I'm sure, every single year. And I guess until Alabama got really good, and then it didn't mean as much maybe to Alabama, but it certainly meant plenty to Auburn. Then he played in it, and then obviously the Civil War there, right? We know if Oregon State has a rough year, but they beat Oregon, it's going to be a much better year. And even if Oregon has a really good year, but loses to Oregon State, it's going to be tough because those are your neighbors, right? That's
yes.
It's funny because I worked in Oklahoma City. This was my first job in radio back in 2002, 03. And I grew up in Dallas, so the Texas OU game, and I found out they called it OU Texas game, but Texas OU game meant plenty to those of us in Texas, even though you had A&M and you had so many schools in Texas. But Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in the Bedlam game, like those were your neighbors. Beating Texas mattered to OU, but if Oklahoma State got over on Oklahoma, they never heard the end of it, you know. So I think that Bo's aware of rivalries, and Cortland Sutton talked about it. He's obviously been here the longest, so Court talked about it, and Pat Surtain, and it is a division game, so it's easy to say that. I think Sean understands it more, and he was asked kind of twice about it because he was asked about Mike Shanahan. Mike went 21-7 in his 28 matchups in the regular season with the Raiders, and obviously a lot of that had to do with Al Davis screwing him out of money that he owed him when he was the brief head coach there, but They understand that it matters to the fans. There's going to be 120 or so Broncos alumni back because Randy Gradishar is getting his Hall of Fame Ring of Excellence, and Steve Foley and Riley Odoms are going into the Ring of Fame. So they're wearing the throwback uniforms. One of the cool things about the Raiders, you know, hate them or love them, their uniforms are already throwbacks, right? So more or less. And so it'll look cool. It'll look like a game from the 70s or early 80s with these uniforms as opposed to when teams wear throwbacks. Like here, I'm watching the Falcons right now, and they got the red helmets, which look awesome. But the Bucs are in their modern uniform and not, you know, some version of the creamsicle splashed in there. And so I think that it matters to the fans. They understand that. If they can't find a way to beat this version of the Raiders with all the stuff going on, then they're going to have much bigger problems to deal with because no Devontae, if there's no Max Crosby, both their tackles have been banged up and haven't practiced yet, and then Antonio Pierce just having to try to keep it all together, plus answer questions about his NCAA infraction stuff, even though that doesn't affect the game at all. It's just a lot going on there. If they can't win this game Sunday where they're 2.5-point favorites, and there's a problem. But I do think Sean did a better job of talking about the rivalry this year than last, and certainly better than Nathaniel Hackett 2 years ago where he's like, I like all the teams. You know, my dad used to work for the Chiefs or whatever, which is not a good answer.
No, it's a bad answer.
Brennan, what do you think of those Bronco throwbacks?
I love them. It's funny because even being in there today with the players in the locker room, and it's going to come up, and I can't remember who it was that was standing near us, but he's like, man, I wish we could wear these way more than just twice a year because, you know, not have the restrictions on it. What'll be cool, and this is probably the kind of thing that you ask a Roger Goodell, although it's not below his pay grade, but the NFL's so weird about, like, throwbacks, but why can't the Broncos, once they've now introduced this, also wear the white jersey if there's somewhere where a team wants to wear a dark colored jersey at home, right? And wear the orange pants with the white jersey like we saw in the 70s in the beginning of the Orange Crush days with Randy Gradishar and company. And so I think that they're awesome, and they've sold great. I think they've sold out in some of the local stores, as well as Team Store had to get restocked. They waited until September to drop them, even though, you know, they came out in July so that people would buy the new gear. And so they'll get to wear them twice, and I think they'll maximize that each year. And if they can find a way to sprinkle it in more, I think it'd be a good thing because it does remind you, right, what's new, what's old is new and cool again. And so there's plenty of people that just want them to go back to that. But the Broncos really do like their tweak of their you know, uniform since 1998, and so, or 97, whatever that was, with this version now. But I think that it'll be cool and it'll look really cool on TV.
I think you said the biggest thing of all, they're selling well. Isn't that what's most important?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you should think that, like, you know, as we're watching this Falcons and Bucs game that's just getting started, a white Falcons with red helmet combo, when they go to Tampa next year, if Tampa's wearing or even this year, right? Like, why can't we have a variation, not total redesigns, but just, you can wear home or road of these throwbacks from that era. Like getting to that point where it's because that is, we know the NFL is a business first and foremost.
Yeah.
So you're giving everyone across the league a chance to make more money, and it doesn't affect the product on the field because everyone's playing by, in theory, the same rules. Some teams aren't going to make any changes, or the Raiders and Packers. I guess Packers have that one from 1920 or whatever, that gross blue and brown one. But in general, they're going to wear the same thing that they've worn forever, and that's okay. But the teams that do have these variations or multiple evolutionary changes, I think it'd just be good for business.
Hey, Brandon, you went to Kansas, right? You're a Jayhawk?
Yeah, a proud Jayhawk, although with what our football team's doing, I can't wait for basketball season.
Well, I thought I would tell you, Dwight and I, we were at Trailblazer Media Day on Monday, and Devontae Graham is now a Trailblazer.
Oh, what a good kid.
And he is so cool, and I thanked him because before I lived in Denver, I was born in Tulsa, so I lived in Oklahoma the first 9 years of my life, so I'm a Sooner fan. And I thanked him for destroying Boomer Sooner during his time at Kansas. And but
I'm sure he was smiling ear to ear.
He was, yes.
Happy to say it was the least he could do.
He loved it, man. He loved being there. He thought it was awesome.
Oh yeah, no, it's unmatched. But he's had an interesting NBA career. But when you look at how the Blazers are currently constructed, I think there should be minutes for him, right? And Chauncey will find a way to use him. I have to think, but
yeah, because you need someone that you can trust coming off the bench to handle the rock and initiate the offense, and he can do that. Yeah,
knock down a shot. He's shown that he can do that a couple of places. So I'm surprised he didn't stick with the Spurs. But the NBA's weird like that. So I know that it's exciting. The Nuggets are in Abu Dhabi right now, and so if your listeners just want to watch some NBA basketball, I'm pretty sure it's on NBA TV at maybe 7 a.m. tomorrow or 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm trying to think what time it is. I can check real quick. But you're going to get Nuggets and Celtics, the last two champs.
Hey, Brandon.
Friday and Sunday.
I got to ask you this, Brandon. Chad tells me that Chauncey Billups is still pretty big in Denver. That true?
He's not just the king of Park Hill. He's the best basketball player that's from here and then stayed here. He still obviously has a house here, even though he spends most of his time in Portland. He and his wife Piper are Denver royalty, and he's built a huge, good-sized basketball academy that raised the level of AAU play. Because I remember Chauncey telling me that when he was a kid, he had to go to Oakland or SoCal to get on a good team in the summer because they just didn't have enough players around him here in Denver that could keep up with him and give him a chance to win in some of those big AAU tournaments. But no, and not only that, he's a huge Broncos fan. I talked to you right before the opener. Had he not been at the U.S. Open, I think he was planning on being at that opener against the Seahawks. And I guess ultimately he was glad he didn't go, unlike Chad, who was bummed that his team lost. And I was,
that was rough.
Bummed we didn't see each other, Chad, even though we're both there. But no, Chauncey is a huge deal in Denver. And even though the Nuggets have had their battles with the Blazers, with Chauncey there as a coach, it's certainly softened that a little bit. And we want to see him do well, right? I want him to get it turned around and get it going with Scoot and everything, and give the Nuggets a run for their money in the playoffs. I think that'd be great because Chauncey's just such a great guy.
All right, Brandon Cristal, 850 KOA in Denver. Dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. Enjoy the game this weekend. And are you on the sideline? Like, what? Are you on the sideline during the game or up in the press box? Like,
no, I'm in the press
days?
box.
Yeah.
Oftentimes sideline pregame. That could be why I just missed you. But then no, I'm in the press box, usually talking louder than I need to, but trying to stay away from the writers like Dwight because I don't want to bug them. So like I have an assigned seat that's pretty close to all the other Denver, beat people, writers, and some of the TV folks. I go way down to the end with a couple other talk show types and guys I just want to talk to.
Yes.
Now, we often aggravate and or make visiting scouts laugh, and sometimes we'll have the visiting GM behind us because they're not in a suite. And so that can be interesting from time to time when you've got the brass from the other team. The Chiefs will sit there. The Raiders will be there this weekend. And so that's always fun to try to make them laugh and also try not to be overly critical because you don't want to be a jerk about it. But I'd rather be loud and not have the writers looking at me because they're trying to figure out how they're going to meet their deadline or what they're going to write about.
Well, what I noticed from being up in the press box in Seattle is Troy Rank is really nice. Mike Kliss was easy to talk to. And then during the game, I noticed that Andrew Mason is the guy who talks pretty regularly to the person he's sitting next to where other
he and I
people
are
can
kind
hear
of cut
him.
from the same cloth. I mean, I was all the way at the end there next to the stats people or like the game ops people in the very last seat. So, no, but Mason and I probably both. And because Mace takes care of that closer to the other guys, I'll do it on the end. But on the road, there's no choice. We're all kind of near each other.
You guys have it covered. Well, dude, thank you so much, man. Enjoy the game. We'll catch up soon, Brandon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
There you go, Brandon Cristal.
That's great.
850 KOA in Denver. So to answer your question, he's not really sure if it was progress or not, but progress in that he didn't make the big mistake.
Right. Yeah, if you can make progress by cutting down mistakes, that is progress.
It is.
Yeah.
And sometimes for a rookie quarterback, well, it's a perfect example. They have a good defense. Don't make a big mistake and set the team up with good field position, and we have a chance to win the game.
That's what this season's going to be about for him, I think. Just don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. And if you can win while he learns the job, that's a major bonus.
Yeah. That's not something you were expecting, is it?
No, I just wanted to see progress. I wasn't expecting back-to-back road wins against the Bucs and Jets.
Yeah.
There's certain games you look at and you're like, they ain't winning that game.
Well, we
that
talked
game.
about the schedule. It was like loss. Yeah.
But now I'm looking at their schedule and I'm like, dang, they could be sitting there at 3-3 or 4-2 after 6 games. That's pretty amazing to me.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, the one thing is the more you win, the bigger the games get. So it's a big game for them on Sunday.
It is.
A chance for Bo to continue to make progress. All right, we'll hand out some high fives when we come back. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. All right, Godfather, any high fives you want to hand out?
Yeah, I think I'll go with the Detroit Tigers. I think I was very happy to see them sweep that first round series, wild card series, and move on in the playoffs. Good young team, fun to watch.
All right, we'll see how things continue to shake out. Right now we have a scoreless game in this game 3 of the wild card with the Mets and Brewers.
6th inning.
See, that's playoff baseball right there.
Yeah.
Good pitching, good defense. I mean, that was Bochy's philosophy down in San Francisco. Good pitching, good defense, timely hitting. It worked pretty well for him.
Yeah, it sure did. At this point of the year, you just got to have the pitching.
That's the most important thing, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah. And good defense makes the pitching better. So it's tied together.
Yeah. Makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Oh, my goodness.
Who you got for a high five?
Nobody. I have no high fives today. Shaq, you got any high fives you want to hand out?
Sure, yeah. Well, one of my favorite movie franchise ever is RoboCop. So this made my day when I heard this news story.
He can sit, stay, and even shake, but he is not your average canine. Meet Spot, the LAPD's newest mechanical crime fighter. Police say the RoboDog enhances officer safety, but
RoboDog is real.
I didn't know the RoboCop was a franchise. That's a franchise, huh?
Yeah, they've made 3 movies, multiple TV shows, miniseries, cartoons, and video games. It's a franchise.
I didn't realize that dogs had to worry about AI replacing them. This is very sad. Very sad.
Cheaper to feed, that's for sure.
Well, is this RoboDog going to take cops' jobs?
It would take regular canine jobs away.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you don't need. Well, then they can have a longer career as a robot versus human dog flesh. I mean, dogs live 15 years. Hopefully, RoboDog can live longer than that.
Boy, I wonder if those dogs are going to be out picketing, losing jobs like that.
I got busted by a German Shepherd once because we snuck out in the 8th grade, and a bunch of us met up in the neighborhood, right, like at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And we thought it was a genius idea, and it was until the cops showed up. But we had gone to a house in the neighborhood that was being constructed, so it wasn't a completed house, and we were hanging out but making too much noise. Well, someone in the neighborhood called the cops, and the problem is I was standing right by the sidewalk when the cop shot up real quick and, rammed his brakes and stopped right there on the sidewalk. The guy that was staying the night at my house, Jeff, he escaped into the bush and was able to hide. But as soon as the cop stopped the car, he jumped out with his German Shepherd, and that dog was right up on me. And those dogs are pretty intimidating, especially when you're 14 years old. And what really sucked is that he took me home. The cop put me in his car and took me home to my house. And my buddy Jeff had made it to my house, and he was hiding behind a bush. So if I wouldn't have gotten stuck by the German Shepherd, we would have gotten away scot-free. We could have snuck back in, gone to sleep, and it's like nothing ever happened. But
you were a little bit of a troublemaker as a kid, weren't you?
I was. The worst part is that my Nana was visiting on vacation at the house. She answered the door when I was standing there with the cop. And she's like, Chad, what are you doing outside? And it's like, I don't really want to talk about that right now. Dang it. But it was the German Shepherd. Had it not been for the German Shepherd, I would have taken off to the woods, but the dog was intimidating.
See, I don't know if the robot dog, at least he wouldn't be able to follow the scent, I wouldn't think. So,
yeah.
Yeah, just spray paint his camera, his eyes. Isn't that what they do in the movies?
I guess.
I've seen that, though, when they honor one of the German Shepherds that's going into retirement, and they drop a bunch of balls down for him and stuff.
Big deal. Yeah. And those are great dogs, man.
Super cool, super smart.
Yeah. The canine officers really get attached to their pups. Yeah.
That'd be cool to have that type of bond with a dog like that.
Yeah.
The puppy shots is feeling better. I can tell he's getting a little bit better.
Good.
But, I took him to the vet, and then they did some blood work and some tests, and they're like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with him. I'm like, no disrespect, but I'm going to have to disagree with your assessment because he has not been right the last few days, but I can tell he's starting to feel a little bit better. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like an infection or something. I don't know. Maybe he just got under the weather, but, man, for a couple of days, he wasn't normal. I just hate it, man. Like when you get attached to a pet and they're not right, like I just wish they could talk to you for like a second. Just tell me what's wrong. I'll do anything for you.
Yeah.
But you have no idea.
No, it's really hard to tell. It's really tragic when they get older too. They don't have all that much time left, and they're moping around and they're not moving real well. But there's no limp or anything. You can't tell what's going on here.
How old's Dino, Shacker?
Between 8 and 11, because it's unsure what his age is. Yeah,
that's pretty wide gap.
I was gonna say that's a big range.
Yeah, but they were going by the teeth, but the teeth were really great when they adopted him, but it was just unknown. But yeah, it's scary. The vet's calling him an old dog. And that makes me sad because it feels like I just got him.
The vet's saying he's old?
Yeah, because his brown fur is turning white.
But he's still in good health, right?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, a lot of dogs get gray sooner than they should.
Yeah, Dino's a good dog. He likes me too.
Yeah, and I was dealing with a sick dog this week also. I mean, it was just diarrhea all over the place. And it's I don't know if this dog got into something that it shouldn't have, but yeah, it's been a mess in my place.
Well, that's what Dwight was talking about the other day. They go in the backyard and get into everything back there.
Yeah, you never know what they've eaten.
Well, that sounds better than the firea that you were telling me about, Shacker.
Yeah. Maybe it was contagious. I gave it to the dog.
Gentlemen.
I never heard that phrase, firea.
It's dinner time. Come on.
Firea, cha-cha-cha. All right, we'll keep things rolling into the evening. We're back tomorrow for the Rip City Drive, which will start at 3. Justin Myers, has he gotten in a car wreck since last weekend?
I hope not. I hope those pumpkins are holding up, too. They got to last all the way to the end of the month.
Well, he's got enough of them, for crying out loud.
Yeah, that's true.
He'll have Fancy Coffee Friday tomorrow at 6. Big thanks to Michael Shacker, Brandon Cristal, Aaron Fentress, and Alex Brink.